all good.
Okay, good evening. Good evening, Winchester. Welcome to the Planning Board meeting for August 7th, 2018. We have an exciting, extended agenda today. We've got Dennis Carlone speaking to us about fall town meeting articles. We have a ZBA petition. We have a couple of discussions about looking at how we might be able to prevent tear-downs in town. We're going to talk about the housing production plan, which the town is putting together, and then a few more things at the end. So, why don't we get started? Anything you want to say, Brian?
No, I was just going to try to get Google Maps up here, and then we can go right into
Okay.
discussion.
We get
with Dennis.
printed agendas just for the table?
Yeah, you should have had one in your
Yeah.
packet.
Yeah, it's in the packet.
Yeah, no, I believe you.
You should have one.
No
if
problem.
if you don't, that's a mistake.
Not a problem.
Okay.
Don't worry. I have your memo. That's weird. Okay, I pulled everything apart, obviously.
Wow, yeah.
So,
Don't worry.
I do have one announcement, and that is concerning and let me make sure I get the email up so I can say this appropriately. So let me find it. Come on. There we go. So one of the topics that has come up over the last few weeks has been the concept of how we address potential, let me put this correctly. Maureen, you came up with really good phrasing on this.
I didn't know where we're going with this.
Well, this is in terms of looking at potential developments within town and how we as a town can address them. And so I know that, Maureen, you met with Mike Betancourt and talked, no, you didn't, you spoke with him, though. Well, that's meeting. And there was talking about whether creating some sort of a Winchester Housing Corporation or looking at economic development corporations. And there is a little subcommittee that looks like it will be being formed, and we'd like to get 2 people from the planning board who would like to be on this subcommittee.
Oh, I offered.
And we already have 2 people who jumped up with their hands in the air. So, so we've got Betsy and Maureen, and so this would be composed of people from the Historical Commission, Housing Partnership Board, Planning Board, Housing Authority, Select Board, Council on Aging, Jenks Center, and Town Council. And so we would be reviewing essentially what structures are available.
I'm really learning.
And, I'm sorry?
Learning.
Learning, yes. Well, looking at trying to understand what's available, and so we have 2, so I will note that you and Betsy and Maureen are up for it. And so that was it. That's all I wanted to say.
There we go. Not planning on any vacation this year, so. Except for in October, that doesn't count.
Okay. So why don't we jump right into our first item, which is we welcome Dennis Carlone to the table.
Hello. Hello, hello.
Green is the color.
Yeah.
I guess so. We got it. Well,
Betsy, you didn't get the message.
I know,
Brian.
I just didn't get the memo.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So we had a couple of items that we wanted to discuss with you, Dennis, and one of them was to resolve this sort of inconsistency we have in the Center Business District with respect to FARs and building height on a particular property. And then we had another item on the fall town meeting, which was about dormers, and we wanted to get your insight or your opinion or your expertise, judicious knowledge, whatever you want to call it, about
They all
dormers.
sound good.
They do. We're setting a really high bar, so. Okay.
As you
We have to
know,
pay
you've
you
dealt
now?
with this before, so.
So why don't we start with the FAR stuff?
Okay, I'll just go super quick.
Please.
Yeah.
Why don't we let me tilt that.
Yeah. So we have been debating making a change in potentially just the East Core or even in other, it's been a very kind of open conversation. But mainly we've been focusing on the East Core for the building, we'll go there in a second, but the building that we were talking about earlier, that's right kind of at the edge of the East Core on Mount Vernon Street. So this is the potential change that we're talking about. It's this maximum floor area ratio, so they can go up to 1.5 by right, but up to 2.5 with a special permit. We generally found in discussions, there was kind of, we were wavering, there were kind of, some people felt in general that a 3 stories in downtown in certain areas makes sense. But there's also the idea of being sensitive to the historic structures downtown. So we wanted, the inconsistency that Diab was talking about was that a lot of the older buildings in the Center Business District, or just in general, most of the buildings in the Center Business District, cover a large portion of their lot, nearly 100, maybe somewhere between 90 and 100%. So anything that would even make sense, for a 3-story building, if let's say there's no historic or anything related to that, let's say there's a green building, for example, that's is not considered historically significant, it would be impossible to even apply for something outside of that 2.5 FAR. So that's the inconsistency that Dia was talking about, and we also wanted to get your specific opinion about this building that we're talking about, as well as generally talking about raising the FAR.
I've renovated a number of historic buildings and have built new buildings on larger sites, and they really are very different, not just the historic character that we've talked about before, but you're right, there's no parking generally on these historic sites. In the building, I mean, when I say there's no parking, there's no setback, even sometimes in the back alley, but certainly at the sidewalks. That's how we developed. I think new construction, the studies I did for the town, and historic buildings are really different animals as far as that, all the statistics, all the zoning. Mm-hmm. So I could see building by building, a study of what it would mean. For instance, a corner building, which is the building I was asked to look at, because it is at least 2 public faces, is different than if it's more of a townhouse where it's stuck in a block and there's 2 party walls. Because now you're going to see a great deal of the building. I'll talk about the building in particular and maybe work back to what I think what I would recommend, and that is and let me finish before anybody thinks I'm heading in the wrong direction.
You have the floor, you've got the talking stick, no one can say anything.
Well, no, well, looks can kill sometimes. So I looked at this building, and it's a very handsome building, and you might recall when I did the study, we did it in 3 phases because we kept looking at a larger piece every time, and this is one of the blocks we really didn't look at, and we talked about the wasn't a lodge, the building on the left. It was an old.
It was the old town, the meeting hall for.
The meeting hall.
Yeah, that's where town meeting was.
From way back in the way back. Yeah.
Like
It was
it's called
above-
Lyceum.
it was above
It's
this
called
building.
Lyceum Hall. but-
See, you would, very interesting, actually very unique building, and the
just
top,
got
the
the
unique
design.
part was taken off and it was somewhat emasculated. Now that building, there's no question in my mind that if there was interest, that somehow we'd figure out a way to rebuild it, and I believe the zoning mentions something about that. This
Yeah.
building is truly a 2-story complete building. If you were to add on top, I would say you want to be 10 feet back. I'm using this number, I haven't studied it, and there are other people who've studied architecture. 10 foot back from the main street, from Mount Vernon, and 5 foot in from the side street. But that would need to be studied, but I would tie that to granting that in a special permit, that the ground floor be restored. In other words, there's a public benefit and a private benefit. But I asked Brian earlier if the town had CPA funds, because, yeah, I know you don't. I know you all want it. Makes sense. And in Cambridge, where I do a lot of work, a CPA gives the Historic Commission $1 million a year, and they can use it to maybe pay a third of the restoration work or more, depending on what it is. And that's how we do affordable housing in old buildings. The Historic Commission gets involved. So it's like a twofer. You get a private benefit and you get a public benefit. But this building is a good example. Who knows what the first floor was? You probably do, but I don't.
Yeah, it's on, there.
But the second floor is intact, and the message there is pretty clear about the modulation, what that top floor should respect. And now, I used to do a lot of work like this for Boston, and we literally would draw blocks up. We would take this block and freehand over a photograph what it was and what it should be if you're adding to it. Now, I actually added to one of the buildings that's in the report I did for the town, the concrete two-story building on Main Street next to the Grand
Oh, right.
Victorian building. And I had a very simple addition back about 10 feet, but you could hardly see it. But it was not on a corner. So in this case, I think you could do it. I think it probably means a different zoning for historic context. We might, I mean, you know how I feel, I wish the Historic Commission was strong here?
Yeah.
Because all these buildings need to be loved. You don't have a lot of them.
Right.
And we could put guidelines in that the end result is plus plus. But it's got to be that combination, I think, or because the ground floor is, I hadn't really studied the ground floor. I was looking at the massing when I was out there, but this ground floor is a little crazy and it could be so much better. And let's face it, it's not all going to happen at the same time, but that becomes part of the agreement within so many years. But if that ground floor were like what it probably was originally, that building would be so much stronger and so much more handsome, and probably the use on the right that I can't quite read, pond something,
That's the florist.
of the florist would be a stronger image of that's an important place. So I did a lot of this work. It was called neighborhood development in Boston, and mostly in the poor neighborhoods. And the city would pay for me to do the architectural drawings as well as the master plan of an area, a block. And I'm not suggesting all this, I'm just saying this is how Boston dealt with it. And it was amazing how and it was mostly storefront work, although I did do a complete 3-story building. It just completely changed the image of that street, doing storefronts of all things. I did a lot of burnt-out buildings to bring them back. With the top floor was gone forever, and we didn't put it back. But you could, and once you do one of them, and it's done right, everybody else, if there were a way to supplant the funds, everybody else would want to be a part of it. And I think city paid a third, the city of Boston paid a third, up to a certain amount, but we were able to meet that. And we didn't always do the traditional wood storefronts, in fact, none were wood. We didn't put granite below. I would use ceramic tile to emulate granite at where that's dark paint. So it doesn't have to literally be a restoration. It could be in the spirit, but anybody looking at them, they felt that the buildings were complete. Now, I'm part of, in Harvard Square, we're doing new guidelines, and for this exact kind of work, and people are asking to get back to the spirit of the building. The spirit's lost on the first floor here. So the spirit has to be, can be simple and clean on the third floor, but the character of the building, the identity should still be there. So materials, window sizes, all that makes sense. I think it can be done, but I think it needs study.
That's the point.
Whoever does it, it needs study. And each building is different.
Yeah.
So, I guess like language, I mean, we're getting to the fine detail of what we would do with this, you know, if this building was to be restored. But in terms of a potential zoning change,
Well, let me ask you something. In a lot of my work under special permit, and when they were overlay districts, the planning board had the right to give up setbacks, required setbacks, but even modify the height slightly. I don't think we ever did any more than 3 feet, but this is a 120-foot building. I think you can do the same thing. I'm just throwing this out. I don't know if anybody's a lawyer.
We know lawyers. We all do.
But maybe the FAR can also be if the building meets the intent. Now, I don't think you can go from probably 2.5 to 3, but you could go with the setbacks that I was talking about, you could go 2.5 to 2.72 or something like that. That might be something to look into, because I know for a fact we did it in height. Max was 120, and the Moishe Softy building in East Cambridge was 122.10 or something like that. And that happened through the special permit.
so yeah, the way that the language that we have specifically says that we can only go up to 2.5 with a special permit.
Well, but we could only go up to 120 feet with a special permit, but we went beyond that. That the planning board had the right for moderate alterations if it made sense. The reason there it made sense is you needed the extra 2.5 feet to get the top floor. So there was an extra floor of housing.
But why wouldn't you change the language if you're gonna change what's allowed with a special permit?
Because usually then everybody comes in and says, I want the 3.0. I don't know of any special permit
Exactly.
that they haven't asked for and gotten the max.
And they do get it. That's
So if you do have setbacks, you can't get a 3. I'm using this building as an
It's,
example.
yeah, you can't get 3.0
Just as a
because
reference.
you're taking 10 feet off the length of
Right,
the
right.
building, so.
Well,
yeah.
but you mentioned that little alley or that little entry in the back, if
Right.
you turn the corner, was part of the building?
This is the residential entrance.
No, there's a little, see the one story?
Yeah, all right,
Is that part of the warehouse-looking building?
sorry. Yeah, you know what,
I
believe
couldn't tell.
That's that's,
Yeah.
East West, how are you?
that's not part of that corner
No, so, yeah,
building.
this is
not.
this is the residential entrance. This is one, it has to be something associated with this office building.
Yeah, looks like,
Maybe it's second means of egress.
Yeah, because, yeah.
Yeah, because otherwise they have.
Well,
a hard
this
time
is not
getting-
building here in between, I mean,
it goes
So-
back, yeah, that's all.
but it's a portion, meaning that they're not
Heather,
like
if the
housing.
planning board were strong, you could say, well, we're only going to grant 2.8, but what happens is everybody, they're going to say, well, the three development entities before us all got 3.0 and they weren't perfect, and it gets
Right.
very
Exactly, and
picky.
they'll start saying, that's the precedent, so.
But,
But
How
doesn't
is
it-
that any different than changing the rules for certain people?
yeah.
It's the same, I mean, I understand the difference, but
Well, I'm suggesting that you know ahead of time, you draw up.
Well, that's the piece.
That's the key.
Explain more
Yeah.
what you're talking about.
Well, I'm talking off the top of my head, but let's say simply on a roof plan, on two-story buildings that are worthy, you draw the 10-foot, or whatever dimension it is, 10-foot and 5-foot. And that, in a zoning revision, it would be zoning revision, but it's
Well,
an
basically
simple
like-
and clear.
It's basically like form-based code. You really,
Yes.
thank
Yeah,
you.
well,
Yes.
yeah,
And
you're,
we once, actually, that's where this
We
board
talked
started,
about- yeah,
and we
exactly.
brought in George Proakos, and they've done some of that in Somerville. It's great, I love it, and I love what you're saying. But this town has no, we dropped it. It's expensive.
yeah,
And
that was the main reason.
Well, it's changing everything. I've tried to get it in Cambridge
Exactly.
it's great. It's
And,
just, it takes money,
and other towns that I've worked in, and
It's difficult.
and
they,
finish
they
the
love
sentence.
it, and they just say, oh, we don't have the money for it.
Yeah, so that's the,
I'm,
that to me
I'm
is
still
where-
confused as how do we go forward with this. Let's take your suggestion.
I'm just suggesting that might be a way of looking at it. It then becomes another, for these, I don't know how many buildings there are in the CBD that would qualify, but I'm guessing
Not a ton, but
10?
Let's all-
sure,
Definitely
sure.
10.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
say 10
Yeah,
to 15.
one-story buildings, unless it's exceptional, I wouldn't even consider it. They should come down in most cases,
Wait a sec, you've got the
Wait,
bank directly
wait,
across
wait,
the
wait,
street.
wait. I'm still,
in most cases.
I'm still trying to understand the actual, how this would actually work out in practice. So we're going to identify particular buildings. We're going to say,
Need money.
these are the particular setbacks we would allow on these or would require on these
The
buildings.
special permit, you could
And so,
build up to.
right, so we would actually go out there and proactively say, these are the limits to what you can do to this particular building. And we'd have to write that into the zoning.
You do it in a drawing form.
not only
Exactly.
that, he's saying, but then to do that, you have to pay for the restoration
Exactly.
of the first.
Well, that's a separate issue. That's a requirement under the
special
special
permit condition that
permit.
probably
I'm
wouldn't-
just trying to understand how the planning board gets the authority to say, hey, we're going to tweak the zoning laws just for you. And that's the part I'm having a real problem with, is that we're essentially saying we're going
Well,
to do spot zoning.
I don't know.
Yes, this is zoning for
Would be
particular properties.
No, it would be for all two-story buildings. First of all, you have to say,
you'd have to
what are the
define it.
buildings that this would work with? I think we've all had this discussion before, that there needs to be high-end landmarks like North Star, North.
North Mark.
The bank.
Mark Bank.
across-
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually the old Winchester.
You can't add on
Winchester
top of
Savings.
that. In fact, the renovations that occurred, I don't know, 20 years ago weren't the best on that building, from what I can tell. But, and when I say one-story buildings, I mean the traditional
Yeah.
Sure, but
1920,
Flat roof,
don't put
yeah.
any money into it buildings,
But-
not the turn of the century. And on two-story buildings that are worthy, you literally call them out and say, in the goal of preserving and enhancing these properties, we will allow minor additional FAR, or however we want to word it, as long as it has these characteristics. 10-foot setback. I'm not even sure that's the right number. It has to be studied.
right. No, I understand. I'm still trying to understand the wording that goes into the zoning bylaws to make sure that
Well,
this
it's a
is.
special permit. You can say a heck of a lot in a special permit.
You can.
I understand where it goes. I'm still working on, to me, this really is saying, we have these 5 buildings, we want to do something special for these 5 buildings, and we're going to write requirements on how you develop these 5 buildings. Or N buildings, doesn't matter.
Well, look, the easiest way is to go for a variance. But a variance is loaded, and so what we're trying to do is program it in a way, and I don't have the answers.
Yeah,
Brian told me what the issue was. I
Yeah.
had a little chat earlier. And I'm just suggesting, it seems to me, this is one possibility.
oh, yeah, I don't disagree. I just, from where I'm looking at, I want to make sure that we are even-handed in how we approach zoning. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
that, it doesn't look like we've decided that we're going to do things specially just for certain properties, just because we like
Type
them.
of property.
Yeah,
Exactly.
but you can create categories of properties so that you find exactly one building falls in that category. And so you can say, well, I was being general, but you
No,
only got
well,
one building.
we
in that.
wouldn't do that.
Right.
It
Well,
would
there-
have to
That's why you
be,
could-
well, that's why there needs to be I'm not going to do this, an analysis of
understand.
what buildings are number ones, historic buildings,
Right.
and then number twos. That's a number two in my book. Number two being good and worthy of being saved. And maybe there's 5 levels of existing buildings. And the one should be saved no matter what. And that's where the historic strength needs to come in that doesn't exist in town.
Right.
And number 2 is, we're going to deal with, you can add to the back of the bank building.
Well, we have fairly strong language currently in the CBD, which essentially means that there is strong protection for the buildings in the CBD. Some on this board disagree. But the question that this board was struggling with was whether or not this building should be added to at all. And there are some who feel that this building should never have a third story because it ruins it historically, or whatever.
Oh, well,
And there are others who feel that it could accommodate a third story. And so,
I think all would agree that if you add to it, it shouldn't hurt the building. It should be done with great attention by both the board and the architect, and it should feel as one, not like it was built at the same time, but there are subtle things you can do to make that clear. But if you do that, the end result should be more than just adding FAR. It should be restoring the
Right.
integrity of the building,
Right.
the
So I wanna-
overall
I
building.
wanna
And
follow up on that.
keeping the overall character.
Because I haven't spoken at all. Seems to me one of the major, well, there are a couple things. One is just the pragmatic reality, and you did say that, and I want to reiterate. First of all, once you open the floodgates and say you go to a certain level of FAR, everybody's going to be in here wanting it. So it's not just one building, it becomes everybody. And actually, it's not even going to just be one, what do we call these, East Core. It'll be coming back on every part of the CBD. So that's just reality.
Well, and I'm saying it doesn't
I'm not
have to
talking
be
about the
every
whole-
part. I'm saying it's only the historic blocks.
Right, and so separate from that,
Right, and by
my other
special
thought
permit.
is that we've gone through the whole exercise of identifying and putting some money into and doing these beautiful drawings of the PUD. So we went through the exercise of figuring out where we want new development. And now I've come to realize over, maybe it's the past year or two, that we've seen several proposals for adding to tops of buildings. If you own a building already and you're not planning to take it down, and all you think you can do is, or if you think you can just come into this planning board and get yourself an extra story, that's just sheer gravy. That's just plain money. So there's a real incentive for those who own buildings that aren't coming down to see if they can persuade this board that they can put something on top of it. So this isn't working. What we really want is all these areas we've identified with green and in the PUDs, and that's a good portion of the town center where we actually want the development. So here we are looking at the parts of the town that are good and seeing, and actually directly, Brian, could you go back to Mount Vernon Street for a sec? And then, drop down your little guy. Yep, here he goes. Yep, that's fine. Stop. Drop him. Boop. And so here we are. And by the way, look at what you'd really have to do a lot not to see what's on top of that
No,
building.
you will see it,
Exactly. So
but
that's the first
it
thing.
will
And we've
be
got
not
this
at the
amazing
facade.
corridor where you've got a degree of, balance in the corridor, and that beautiful vista toward the Congregational Church, and you turn around and you have the tower of the First Baptist Church. This is one of our best entries into town. Then, can we go forward? to me, it's gorgeous, and we've got so much trash in the town. But then we also got a few, I think 3 years ago, somebody who wanted to put an addition on top of the brick, I think it's called the White Building. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
And that should be
was-
set back too.
well, and there, the guy was proposing, and we saw it, to take down the entire parapet and throw another, right, thank you. So it's just the whole thing becomes a lot of challenge, and in the meantime, we've got what's up at front left, and that's part of your PUD, which wraps around toward the
Yeah.
mill pond and back, and your plan was gorgeous. So the question is, do we just want to spend a whole lot of time with builders who are, or property owners who are coming in, wanting to pop stuff on top of buildings that are good, when in fact we're trying to promote
Well,
the redevelopment of probably half the CBD, which could take it, or 2/3 actually.
You might all recall, I was even concerned about 2.5
Yes, thanks.
on
Thank
bigger
you.
lots. And few of us went on a tour of East Cambridge.
Right. We were
Only
passing
2
around.
were left. And,
Freezing to death through that.
and I pointed out what was 2.0 FAR and what was 3 and what was 4.
Yep.
And your mouths dropped. Now, those were larger sites, so it accumulates, and we made people set back and create parks, so that it maybe aggravated it. On small sites, like this building that we're talking about, or any of these buildings, it's different. It's because it isn't huge. And the question was, can it be done well? Yes. With your strong involvement and somebody who'll fight with you, and hopefully the historic people
Right.
will come out and insist, and it can be done. It's going to be more work probably than design review of that building on Elmwood that never got built,
Oh, it's
that
coming.
we worked on together.
It's coming.
Well, not yet.
Well, does anyone else want to say anything about
I
this?
wasn't actually,
wanna say
I was,
Yeah, but,
I also wasn't done because Dennis was.
okay, go ahead, give you a couple more minutes.
I'm sorry, but
I'm- oh, yeah.
I
Couple more
wanted to
minutes.
Finish some thoughts. So in addition to that, I just wanted to say I've, in the past, I guess, couple of months since this has come up, I've been through Wellesley because I was going to Wellesley College. I've looked at it really closely. I've been to Newburyport, which just is jaw-dropping. It's so gorgeous, and we like to think this is a nice town center, but Newburyport's so much nicer. Belmont, I looked today on Google Map. I did exactly what Brian's been doing. I was looking at aerial view, and I was looking satellite view, and I was looking at the street view. And so I roamed around on Google. I was looking at both Lexington and Concord. They've got great roofscapes, and they don't have these extra stories. So it just seems to me that given the type of community we are and the type of town center, and then we've just had this survey, master plan survey, where we've gotten the feedback from this community, how much they do value the CBD, that given our resources, which is one Brian, and a teeny-weeny budget too, what you're describing maybe could be done, but A, it's not at all consistent with the comparable communities that I'm looking at. And then B, we don't have the resources,
Well,
I think, to pull it off successfully.
If I could
anyway.
just respond, I think it depends on what use was proposed and how it's done.
Yes.
You've been to Saratoga Springs.
Yeah.
That's 3.5 stories tall throughout. Now, the street's wider, but it works beautifully.
Right. Well,
Okay, I'll be quiet.
Did,
I was just gonna say that Maureen, I respect your views on preserving the town center as it is, but I feel that maybe the majority of us think that there are places and times and ways that we could do a third story, and instead of spending more time talking about whether we should do a third story or not, we should talk about how we might do it and where and what it would look like instead of, I just don't think we're gonna get back to all agreeing that we should not do a third story.
Can I respond?
well,
It's
Sure.
a matter of
Keep-
funding too, and pragmatically to do something like that right. And I just am talking about so many years on the board. And I think if you're at the table, I'm at the table, and we have the resource, like somebody like Dennis, and we're all together, we could get it done. I have no question. But my views are colored by a lot of experience here, and unfortunately, I've seen so many buildings that I find are embarrassing, and I find they were opportunities lost. So there's a lot that tempers my view, which is a degree of like, it's just, it's
Okay.
just sort of experience. It's
Why
frustrating,
don't
but
we
it's.
just keep, Heather, did you want to say something?
Yeah, so I went back through all my documents when I was part of the Historical Commission and we were going through all of this. And there's a memo that was actually to Betsy when you were chair in August 2014. And the Historical Commission flat out said they're going through all the heights and they're talking about, thank you for the opportunity to provide and everything. And maximum stories in the center business district, and they specifically call out the north side of Mount Vernon Street to recognize that the buildings have the ability to take on additional height if done appropriately without compromising the historical integrity of the building, which is what we're exactly talking about. And then from there, that's how I've always felt. I agreed with the Historical Commission when that in. I voted to approve this memo to you, to the planning board members at that time. And I haven't changed in that. The one thing that keeps it consistent and very strong is that our special permit process in the CBD and the site plan review is very strong for the historical buildings. And as Maureen has always pointed out, that we can always go ask for a consultant to come in on the special permits. We can
Exactly.
deny it if it does not meet that. One of the items of the site plan review, because special permit also has to abide by the site plan review, is that the protection of the existing historical structures, vistas, and natural features. So it is in our zoning to protect this building. It can take an extra story while maintaining the historical elements we like. I don't see, and it's all by special permit, and we can deny it. So at the end of the day, I am still saying in my, that going to that is, if we are safe to go forward. And I know that, you know, I also went, I think this is yours, I think you did this.
Looks familiar.
That he did.
From October after this and review with the planning board. And that for this area, it can go up to 3.5 stories residential. And that's what we're talking about, is going to 3 stories, not even 3.5. And with, I am very comfortable with changing that FAR so it aligns with all the work that was done prior. And going at and looking at all the buildings that are impacted by that FAR, very few, and it really only comes down to these 2 buildings. Bookends is sticking, it's not gonna move. You have the one next to it, the Lieberman building, that one is in the same position. It's
There
one
could
of
be
the
new
buildings.
construction, sorry to interrupt, it could be new construction too, so although it might not be a 3rd floor, there could be, I mean, it could be one of these green buildings, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so,
The idea of 3.5 was that it would have dormers,
Right.
but there'd be a slanted roof.
Like, I'm not scared of height. I'm actually more, and I've always felt comfortable since this past at town meeting, and that the planning board, and that's another great reason why we're the special permit granting authority, is the level of detail that we have, and we have the ability to do in the center business district. So we do not impact in a negative way when we add. But the best part of my perspective of historical resources is building on them to keep them going forward and not freezing them, but to use them going forward in a positive, best way. And for these 2 structures that are the most impacted, there's actually technically 3, I see that this is a positive for them. So I'm still maintaining that I would like to go forward with a 3.0 FAR. If that's the big question, is it a 3.0, is it 2.9? I'm thinking it's a 3.0 because everything is 100% coverage, but
these 2 buildings are, but I
They're
think they're not,
saying with the setbacks.
see, to do what they want to do, I think it's into 2.7 range anyway. I don't think it's even 2.7. I think it was like 2.68 or something.
okay.
We shouldn't be catering to a specific individual.
No, there's these 3
But-
properties that we're looking at, the ones that are
but-
being affected, and the new one. I'm talking about historical.
I-
3 stories I've always felt comfortable with.
Just know on the studies that I did, and I realize everybody might not have seen them, we only went up to 1.8
Yeah.
on the bigger sites. That's because we were trying to save
Yeah, we
open
conglomerated like
space.
5 parcels in one.
And
Yeah,
it was open space and setback along the river and
Right.
other
All of that.
conditions.
Yes.
But they are night and day, these locations and building types, existing versus new.
So Dennis isn't saying to go to this high number.
I
He's
understand.
got a lot of qualifications that go with it.
I,
It's not just a
I
straight
think,
plug
I
in
think
and-
Dennis has been very clear about what he's saying, so, Betsy, would you like to say something?
You know, and
I'm sorry, were you done?
yes, having been in,
No, I also,
I'm sorry, Betsy.
go ahead.
then,
Go
yeah.
ahead.
I'm just looking at the
Okay.
clock.
Go ahead, keep going. I mean, it's all the same.
Okay. Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, the worst thing we could possibly do is actually leaving the downtown, you know, sort of as a stagnant field where nothing were permitted. And I think that what we have done so far is really being able to provide some fairly strong protections. And I think we were working with you in the past. I think we had done a pretty good job of doing that and getting that passed with warm acceptance by the town meeting.
Yes.
Because, you know, I mean, every time you go downtown and you talk with people, and people talk about how much they love the downtown.
Right.
And it's because of the style, it's because of just the overall, the character of it, defined by its height, existing heights. I mean, but by the same token, if something were to come along that were absolutely great, that wanted a little bit more, well, we could probably do that, but I think we would have to examine each and every one of these
Yeah.
on an individual basis, which is where your special permit comes in. Because that gives us the latitude to be able to have that level of control.
Right,
over
well, I
it.
would support that.
And also, then, of course, as part of the process, engaging the public in the discussion as well. So,
So to do what you're saying, what Betsy's saying, there would be, we would be pushing this off, for example, and doing a study and just trying to get more, prepare those examples to bring in, to actually be
Yeah.
referenced in the zoning bylaw. Am I correct?
I have a question. Because I was picking up more of, is there a way, do you think that we could accomplish the same goal? Meaning, instead of looking at all these buildings, hiring a consultant, doing a full study, why can't we kind of do exactly what we did with Elmwood? Do it through a special permit, go through 53G, and then we're doing it when we need to do it, rather than speculating. I mean, why couldn't we work with a builder or whoever is doing it, make them pay for the design review that's necessary, just the same, I mean, I think the design guidelines
I
that
think
you
if you
wrote.
have guidance for them
Yes.
beforehand, sure. But I got to tell you, that process was hell.
On both
It's
sides.
the worst
long.
design review I was ever a part of.
Exactly.
And I've worked on some
Good.
really tough ones where
Oh, yeah.
the design team, the Galleria in East Cambridge,
Yes.
went through 26 different designs. But it wasn't as mean and as negative as that process was. I mean, we didn't even get the money for the longest time. I mean,
Yeah, it's just,
the process
Well-
needs to change.
So,
Oh,
well,
yeah, the
hold
first
on.
one. You're talking about Elmwood.
yeah.
Yeah, so what is it, so you said the process didn't work, so
Right.
we can make the process work. The question is, what was it
Can
that was
revise it.
broken? I wasn't part of that.
Whoever does the work needs to be a consultant to this group,
Well, that's,
Brian and this group.
yeah.
In that case, I was being paid strictly by the person who wanted to develop the building and didn't want my help.
Okay.
Now,
that's
Won't that
always
be
difficult.
not to be negative, isn't that generally the case?
No,
No?
No, you
No.
get ahead of it. That's the whole point of
well,
getting ahead.
well,
of it.
wait. So when you worked on the one at the Galleria, who paid for the
City
consultant?
of Cambridge,
City of
directly.
Cambridge.
Directly.
And they got,
They
the-
charged the developer a design review fee,
isn't that the same thing that 53G would do?
but the money came in before the process started.
And does 53G actually have a say?
So I've been dealing with legal counsel about when you can enact 53G, and you can enact 53G if they're willing, if the applicant, meaning pre-application, if the applicant is willing to do it.
Wait, so they can say, no, we don't want to do 53G?
Well, pre-application.
Right.
That's
Meaning that
what-
once they apply, then we can say we are going to hire a consultant. But if you want to get a consultant in before they actually do the application,
Okay. But
then
that-
you, yeah,
Is
that's,
this, in the case in the Galleria where this worked, when did the,
I was a consultant for 30 years straight. I
but,
was on board all along.
right, but was that done on this project prior to the submission of an application or
yeah,
before
did you
then?
have a conversation with the applicant prior to them applying?
Oh, sure, for years.
Not on Elmwood, on
No, no,
Cambridge.
no.
talking about
we're-
Cambridge. You're talking
I'm
about
trying to, I'm trying to figure out
What can we change?
the process that would work.
I think in the preliminary
If any.
meeting, when they meet with you, you say 53G is going to be coming your way.
Yeah, it's like,
That's
you're
what
gonna
it
have to
comes
put
down to.
$15,000 into, or whatever, into.
More
this-
work that's done before the
Exactly.
process
That's
begins,
right.
the better the process.
Right.
That's
That-
how Somerville does it.
No, no, it
Yeah,
it
but-
makes sense to have someone in-house, essentially, is what you're, or, I
Well-
guess it's not
Oh,
in-house,
but
but
it's
on
also
call.
to-
On
and
call.
Also, to look at it this way, you're a builder, you go out, you hire your architect, you're already invested, and you already run your numbers, you've done a lot of it, you're really there. And so when they arrive at our table, they're already there, they're in sales mode. Whereas if we have the way that Dennis is describing, the way they do it in Somerville, with lots of I mean, not lots actually, because it's an expensive process, it tends to be larger communities, actually Miami has done it. But if you get out ahead and do building by building, then you're basically saying, this is what
I mean,
we're.
I think everyone would agree. that's a
Everyone
great
agrees
idea.
it's a great thing. The practicality of how we
But
change the
that's why,
process to get there.
Are we really ready to do that sort of thing, or do we end up in, as he says, these horrible
So,
situations that take
For the
tons of
first,
I
time?
am-
for the
Both
first 10
units
years,
doing
the city just paid me without asking developers for money.
Right.
And then the developer would reimburse the city over time, and then the city stopped doing that and just paid me. So
Right.
I'm not suggesting
Yeah.
you do that, I'm
No,
just
that's
saying that to
absolutely-
give the full history.
Right.
It's also a
So,
ginormous
yeah.
development.
So, I am not scared of obstacles or difficulties, and perhaps I'm naive and young, but,
Hey, you were along for the ride, you know.
but I don't see that, you know, the fact that we will have to have intense discussions with developers pre or post application doesn't faze me, because we're going to do that with any project that comes in downtown. I believe that we do have, and, you know, if we feel that the language in the CBD doesn't give us the power to do what we need to do, then let's give it to us, but it's pretty strong. The question about who pays for the consultant, I think that's an important one, and whether we need to go through and actually figure out which buildings need to have special setbacks and such, I think that's a interesting question. But, you know, I understand that the town loves its downtown, but I also don't think that the town is going to look at this, and if this is done well, and everyone on this planning board wants to do it well. So I don't see this as an obstacle. I think that if it's done well and we could add tastefully done extra stories to these buildings, then that's in the benefit of the town to do so. So, I mean, that's where I stand on this. I think there are real questions about how we would go about implementing this. Is it as simple as increasing the FAR? Is it something where we need to look at individual buildings and say, do we say this, it requires this setback over that setback? Or do we simply tell developers who want to come in and work on these historical buildings that this is going to be a long road, and if you want to get this through, then you're going to have to pay up front and get a consultant to do so. And that's just going to be the story that goes out, is that if you want to come in and fix this, then talk to us long before, put something on there, talk to us long before you talk to your architect. Because we don't have the deep pockets that Cambridge does have, or,
Staff, because even if you hire a consultant, the staff person has to, I mean, I'm not being crazy or trying to be
No,
argumentative.
no,
It really is a realistic concern.
That's true.
but
Yeah.
the,
Is this something more we're throwing on the shoulders of one planner when we've got a lot of other stuff that we're trying to
I don't I understand that, I agree with you, Maureen. I don't know that this would add, since most of the development we're hoping to occur downtown does not occur on these historical buildings, then there's going to be a lot of work on those anyway.
That's why I'm reminding you, we've already seen the building across from the town common on the Church Street
Yeah.
side, a proposal
And-
for an extra story on
and
that.
that-
We've seen a proposal for an
Right,
extra
and
story on
that
this.
took approximately 25 minutes at a planning board meeting to dissuade the
Unfortunately, that one
developer.
was- Right, so, well, I don't know that you're hearing the end of it, unfortunately.
This will be the start of the redevelopment.
Yeah, but we're going to see this anyway. We want them to come in, and we want to be able to choose.
What we wanted
To
was
separate the wheat from the
redevelopment of
chaff.
the sites on the green lots, and we wanted the PUDs especially. We got all of North Main Street except for the street we're
But-
building with pizza.
But this doesn't affect those developments. This doesn't send a signal to the green lots saying we are less than excited or about people developing the green lots, right? I mean, we're talking about a few lots here, and so I don't see how any decision we make in terms of these buildings affects whether developers were approached and look at the PUDs.
So when we had talked about the progression of most likely what's going to happen in the CBD over the course of the next 10 to 20 years, the end game was clearly the PUDs. That takes that amount of time. The idea of a PUD happening in the first
Broader
even
development.
5 to 8 years seemed very low. I thought everyone agreed that most likely, whether it's green, red, or whatever, that the first round of redevelopment in town was going to be extra stories.
I never expected to see the historic buildings take this much.
I mean, I didn't know what
I
to
did
expect,
not,
other than
because
it
we
was
had
clear that
this
that was the
2.5.
first step in.
No, I
in
know,
downtown.
I would not.
Well, what
it's
would be the
nowhere
first
written
step?
Anywhere in the.
No, not
zoning
written there, I'm
laws
saying
and-
practically, that's what would happen.
Well,
I mean, we can't dictate which buildings developers will be interested in modifying,
in
so.
my mind, the whole concept of the historic buildings is a whole different word, which is illegal, and it comes from U.S. Department of the Interior, and it has to do with the integrity of a historic building. And integrity means you're not going to start taking off the parapet and sticking something else in the middle of
I don't
it.
think anyone here
But
wants.
we would never take off the parapet. I mean, this is,
Well,
it's
let
a
me
straw
try
man in a
again.
way.
Different board might, is that what I mean?
Different board might,
So-
and every year, like including the last election, we see what I would describe as development-friendly people who've been in the race when they've been, every year.
If the town elects people, if the town elects people who want to push more development, then that's the will of the town. The planning board has a duty to represent the town, and if the town all of a sudden says, hey, we're not building enough, we need more buildings, then, I mean, how is the planning board supposed to say, no, that's not what we're going to do?
Well, I think once again, the devil is in the details. And we've got a lot of details
We
in
got
there
78,
already.
78 pages that Dennis wrote.
Very much so.
All the design, got
So-
it.
Exactly right.
But I do want to point out, we still have to talk about dormers, and we have 15 minutes left in this time period. And
Can
so,
we not wrap up but with this other conversation? But I mean, the notes that I was taking was, or at least the thesis that I got from you, and please, now's the time to tell me that I'm right or wrong, that what I was picking up was, right now we have a special permit at 2.5. One, we should figure out, maybe we can legally be able to fudge that in certain cases and we do nothing. That's one possibility.
Minor.
Right. So one, follow that route with legal counsel, see what you can do there. The other is that the actual number, we don't know, maybe it's 275, maybe it's 270, maybe it's whatever, but the idea is that there will be something tied to that, whatever is going to be more, for a special permit, you would think there would be some type of characteristics like setbacks or some type of, negotiation, but I mean, I think a lot of what those characteristics would be are in the design guidelines. Once it's a special permit,
Right.
all you have to do, in my opinion, is take those design guidelines out and be like, look, you're not following these guidelines.
Not,
Why can't you?
not the
That's not-
existing ones. It would be, there would be an addition to it.
You think there would be additional ones
Well,
needed?
I actually believe that every building gives clues to what should happen on top.
Ah, that's a good point.
And in this case, I'm seeing a few things that should be considered. But that's easy to add when the design review starts.
I was gonna say, like, how much can we really do? I mean, I don't see us having the money, time, effort, whatever, to hire somebody to do essentially a form-based code for the entire,
No,
like, that's,
Said that.
I
right,
think,
I'm not saying
I
it's that,
think
I'm
it's
just saying.
5 to 10 buildings.
Maybe we do.
Maybe,
If
5 to
that's
10
what this
buildings
board
seems
wants
much
to
more
do,
reasonable.
maybe that's the way to go.
Well, I'm just, in my head, thinking, I mean, I understand town people love downtown. I think they love the idea of downtown, and they like certain pieces of downtown. But when you ask them where they go, and I have, it's very few places.
Common, Starbucks.
The Common, Starbucks and Town Hall, they love the church when they see that view,
Bookends.
and they love bookends, yeah. That's it.
Yep.
And I went to the tavern tonight, the Red Horse or Big Horse, whatever. They must love that because
It's always packed.
within 2 minutes, the place was packed at 5:30.
There's about, 3 places now downtown. It's just, it's
South
different.
Club.
It's different downtown than it was
Maybe they knew you were coming, Dennis.
There was nobody there when I walked in. And honestly, thank God I walked, I wouldn't have gotten a seat. One person, I wouldn't have gotten a seat.
I know, well, it's
All right,
not
so it
quite the
sounds like
sleepy little downtown it used to be.
possible.
That's probably
You,
good.
you would think, yes, it makes sense in many cases to put it, but there would have to be very
I
strong.
don't think I heard many.
I would say you have to study it.
Right.
Now, what that study means, I don't know. I don't even know how many
Yeah, I mean,
buildings.
yeah, I mean, so you're saying that studying it through a pre, meaning like right now, or you're saying
Study.
that having
A
someone.
study.
Having a study prior to that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you can at least set some limits and know where you're going. And I don't mean of each building that, oh, you need to work with the spacing of the windows. It could be very general. But the setbacks were just off the top of my head. They were gut setbacks, maybe. They don't have to be that.
God said
And
that.
the study is simply what to do with the 2-story buildings in town.
I'm guessing that's all it is.
Essentially, we can
Yeah.
just whether
The
they're-
ones that can be added onto, the
Potential for that.
one
You
that,
know the drug, Winchester drug, there's one I'll offer up. I
Right,
mean,
that, they had, there was a third
Right.
story
Yeah.
on that
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
And probably the buildings behind. There's a parapet on the building that used to be the Winchester, it was the newspaper Star. It was the old Winchester Star building, but you'd have to set it way back. But, bless you, move it into Park and
Now,
take it. But I understand. There's
I
some
do
places-
think you'll see it, but it should complement what's there. That this building, given the long view,
Yeah.
I would put an asterisk on that and say this really needs extra study during the
exactly,
process,
exactly.
during the design review,
Exactly.
because of, it's right
Long
there.
view,
You
yeah.
can't miss it. I believe in dormers. That was the question?
Well, so,
Yes, that
so
was
we
the-
were
Looked at Cambridge.
we started to see first of all, there are a lot of them in town. What specifically what I haven't said it yet, but there are shed dormers on either side that go the
Oh,
length.
residential.
Yeah, this is residential.
Sorry, we're out
Shed
of the
dormers that go the length of the house.
Yeah.
To make it seem like a full third floor. We're seeing more of these. Again, they've been. You'll see them everywhere
Yeah,
in town.
yeah.
They're all over. We have a door. You wrote something for dormers for the CBD. It had to do with nothing more the length of 50% of
Right.
yeah. So we were debating on doing something similar and wanted to know. I started looking at Rockport. Theirs is 60%.
The residential areas?
Only residential.
I see.
So only residential areas.
We have it in the CBD already.
Yeah. He wrote it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the Center Business District is already.
So the center business is 50%. It can't be more than 50% the length of the
Right.
roof.
And that's just so the roof is felt and you didn't feel the wall.
Exactly.
And in this specific case, it's usually in the smaller zones, in the RG, the smaller lots where you have not necessarily Cape, but 1.5-story houses, and then
Right.
you'll have a full blown 3-story box because
Right.
of the shed
Yeah.
dormers on the side.
Yep, yep.
So we were talking about all different types of ways that we could review these. The idea of having a special permit just for a dormer, people were like, I don't know if we want to just be having a trigger for a dormer. And we wanted to get a general opinion about your experience in Cambridge and the residential areas on the smaller streets, because that's, I mean, it's really only these smaller streets that we're even seeing this in general, or that it would even matter as much.
And we liked their design guidelines.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing that is that, the one at least that I think really makes this looks horrible is when you have a gable end which faces the street. So this is what you see.
Know what you mean.
And then you get these pop-ups. And so essentially you've turned a nice house into a box.
Nothing worse than a beautiful Greek revival with columns, and then a foot in, they have the shed, and it's
Yeah, so
it's
that's,
lost.
So, should we regulate this? Question number one. Question number two is, what's your opinion of what we should and how we should? Yeah.
Well,
And if so, what do we do?
I,
Yeah.
I think it would be great if you had pictures of the 3 or 4 building types, so in my head. So they're extruded types, very simple. They're not L in plan, they're just
Yeah,
straight across.
Most of them are, yeah, they're just standard 2.5 stories, and then
Well, you know,
Shed on either
in the
side.
30s and 40s, maybe in the 50s, 1900, everybody had the single window dormers. You didn't have multiple. And I do think you can probably have a double and do an interesting dormer out of that. But there comes a point where it takes,
Takes on a
the
life of its
percentage
own.
takes off, as Diab was mentioning, and all you see, no matter how beautiful a house is, all you see is the big mass.
Right.
Like a half trailer added to the roof on each side. So it's probably proportions. Let me think about that. Do you need it tonight?
no, I mean,
No, no, no,
I don't know
we,
about regulating them. We have ideas on what we like and we don't like.
And we write
We're
Cambridge.
asking, how could we regulate it?
so the three things we came up with were pitch of the roof, depth of the dormer, width of the dormer. So
Yeah.
those three things that if we could somehow,
Manage
Can I
to
add
manage to
something to that, 'cause I
codify
wasn't
that.
present.
All right.
Yeah.
I would like-
So,
I like the view from the public way.
yeah, I
So
agree
if
with
people are
that.
putting them on the back, I'm not so bothered by them.
Yeah, so that was in the guidelines for Cambridge, and they basically say, like, set them far back, try to do it on the back of the house, and not ever on the front.
If you do the bigger ones, you mean?
well, like, or it's like 6 feet in from the front, and then you can go, the percentage maybe wouldn't matter, but there's at least the dormer is not all the way towards the front of the house.
But like on the back side, in the back, I'm like,
yeah, if it's on a non-public,
But the conversation was, should we be regulating this?
yeah, no, I know, and I think that's where we're leaning, is just how to do it.
Right.
Well, it changes the whole image
So
of
like,
the neighborhood.
It does, it does.
there is we use yours as a base of what we did the CBD, but all the dormers in the CBD are 50% or less that are currently existing. And the whole point is just trying to keep the architecture in the CBD, and keep it
Clean.
lasting, right? When you go to the residential, and you go to all the different architectural styles in Winchester, and we have such a vast collection, dormers aren't always the 50. You have some really beautiful ones that are closer to 70, but they're spread out, right?
That's
So you have
right.
multiple ones with the windows
That's
in
right.
it, but it's closer to 70% of that length. So that's why the 50% is where it's starting to go. That 50 isn't right.
But those tend to be older buildings, and they tend to be elegant additions. Most dormers now are not elegant.
No, no.
Maybe
Well, but
on
new
great houses.
construction,
Yeah.
some of the new construction, actually, there was a really beautiful one that was done in the flats a couple years ago, and they have dormers, and it was done beautifully. So there are some,
Yeah, but
residential
most
side.
people don't do that on their own little house. They just get a builder in
but I,
to do it.
yeah, I
Of-
agree
of
with that.
whatever
but
caliber it might
I also
be,
don't
yeah.
want to limit those who do have really good.
Well, you know,
architecture.
it's a special permit. They can come in and make a
Show us
case.
what you want.
Yeah, I mean,
Our special permit
yeah, I mean,
process is not.
No, beyond the guidelines. I mean, whatever the
No, I'm now
guidelines
in
are.
residential.
So you're saying the how is right guidelines?
Yeah, you follow it. If you're not, you come in and
you know, the problem is
you know, in
those
Cambridge, you
guidelines.
have to get a variance for some dormers because the dormer opens up more space in a house.
Yep,
yeah, more gross floor
More
area,
headroom.
more gross floor area. yeah.
exactly.
And that's a pain in the neck. You can see the Board of Zoning Appeals shake their heads whenever that
Oh,
happens.
exactly.
Well,
Because
we,
it could be
have-
a
you
threshold,
have
you know,
FAR
50
issues.
goes in for site plan, 75 goes for special permit too, like, right? So once you hit a certain
That's an interesting point.
We don't have to all make it one or the other.
And we could say if it's on the back of the house, you don't need a special permit. If it's on the
Right,
front of the
right.
house, if it's visible from the public way.
Still might say
No,
that
you'll
it's
see it from the side.
inset on
You'll
the
always see
back.
it.
Yeah.
You'll always see it.
Yeah,
Right,
but-
and that's gonna depend also
Yeah.
on the neighborhoods, because you have some,
Can't see
you
mine.
have some neighborhoods that are much closer together.
Actually, it is true, if you get a giant shed dormer on the back of a house and they're looking down over somebody else, that could be really
That's true.
unfortunate.
It'd
That's
be quite
true.
And
obtrusive.
then you might care
Yeah.
about setting it back from the plane. like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
I was
That's a
being,
definition, we need to include
grossly
that in the
facile.
definition of dormer. We're missing a definition of what a dormer is, and
Yeah.
we've had
We need to have a good
lawyers
one.
come in
I
and try to
agree.
make a case
All right,
finding a dormer outside of what the actual definition of a true architectural dormer is, which
Let me think
includes the
of-
setbacks from the side and the, you know, the plane and.
But you
let me
thi-
think about that and get back to you.
Okay, last question, related. So but in Winchester, in the residential zones, you think it's totally, it makes sense to have a special permit process for someone, for a potential, just in general, a special permit process for
Well,
dormers?
the reason I asked about the house size is if it's just the shed, just the standard Cape Cod roof, I could see a gable being added 90 degrees to the
Yeah.
roof line if it's done correctly, rather than dumb dormers, with shed dormers. I think that theoretically could be nicer, but it all depends on the house type. That's why I was asking what kind of buildings and what size.
Yeah, I think I was more wondering whether or not something else triggers the special permit, and then once you have them in, then you have to adhere to these guidelines. That's different from something that's related specifically to the dormer that triggers the special
All
permit.
right, let me think.
That's the
Driving
question
in, I used to know all the name, Church Street, I think it is. Driving in, there's some spectacular houses, well, both sides.
Ridiculous.
Well, yeah.
And there was one, I wasn't even thinking about dormers tonight, but I looked at it, and there's two big gables and 4 dormers.
Oh, jeez.
It's a big house, but
Still.
it probably is over 50%. Looks fantastic. That's why, the way it's done, and
You can't write, it's hard to
That's why
write,
you
it's
gotta
hard to
write
write
down.
that.
Right.
So it's
but
like-
you won't be dealing with those kinds of houses.
I don't
No.
think so either.
It's
That's
much-
that's
I
not
mean,
what we're
that
seeing
house-
in the special permit process.
The house was a little smaller than this building. No, I'm joking. It was big. It was
Yeah.
big. Okay, I'll get back to you on that.
Forward to your
So before-
commentary on that.
so,
Indeed.
That. Before Dennis leaves, there was some concept that has been floated before, I don't want to lose track of it, which is putting money in ahead with a contract that, in fact, we discussed it when we were finishing up with this zoning.
We've discussed it 3 times.
So
That's
let's
why I
try
don't bring it
again
up
one more
anymore.
time. No, but I want to, because I really think we're talking about design review and how we need help and working with the developer, which is very different from our design review committee meetings with the developer. And the idea is that eventually the 53G comes in to replenish, but to have some money in a kitty, basically, or in an account. Now, you pick it up and explain to the board if you
Well,
would.
that you just did. That's it. And
So it's similar to a situation we already have, that the Historical Commission has with its consultant. When a demolition application comes in, they have, it's essentially an on-call consultant. So there's an overall contract that's good for the fiscal year, and then it's a contract not to exceed a certain amount of money, and it's $500 a pop for these forms. For this, it could be whatever, an hourly rate of whatever it is until
right,
done.
we need to salt the kitty?
Yeah, but salt the kitty, that's the difference.
That
I
is a
don't think there's
horrible
social
visual.
that
Horrible
way.
phrase.
That's a horrible phrase.
Well, I'm picking up, it's yours.
I know, that doesn't
I'm giving
mean,
it
just
back to you.
because I said it doesn't mean it's
yeah,
good.
let's
kitties
call it
anymore, but,
an investment instead.
Well, we need to put some money in the bank
There
before,
you go.
so we need an initial,
Prime the
So
pump.
that's
We need to prime the pump,
That's
yes.
really, much better, Betsy.
thank
So
you.
on first meetings with developers, I participated in those. And I was the tough guy, and the Brian next to me was, more open to things, and other times it was the other way around. But in most cases, it set a tone that,
I
you
think
know,
this is a great
some
idea. I think this is a
developer-
great idea.
This is a great
some
idea.
developers, and I could tell you who they are, saw the light, and they went through the process so much faster.
We found that already in the CBD, the people
Yeah,
that
you know.
actually went through, looked at the design guidelines, this person hired the right architect, and it was one meeting, and then the second meeting wasn't even a real meeting, so.
That's right.
Yeah.
So we do have, we have consultants' money in the budget.
Do that? Or you want to vote?
So I don't know if we want to vote to set aside a particular amount. I mean,
Well, I'll tell you right now, it doesn't make sense for me to work for less than 25,000 on any project. I lose my shirt,
okay.
and I'm beyond that. I'm
You've
You like
lost
shirts.
too many shirts, yeah, we got.
I have a nice shirt on.
It's the right
We like
color.
it.
Oh, you're winning on the
You had the
card.
water bottle.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
We coordinated. People who've studied architecture coordinated.
Well,
We will continue this conversation.
Yeah, no, you do
Yeah.
it privately. But
Yeah.
I just want to understand, and
we won't drop
Yob,
it.
that was a price 20 years ago. And I'm not saying more
Right.
now, but that really, that's nothing
No,
as far as a contract.
agreed.
Well, yeah, we'll discuss this
But it
more.
might be
So
a lot for the
you know,
town. I get that.
25,000 for
That
how
would be
much
all of our- That
time?
would pretty much be all of our personal services.
Yeah,
Sorry, professional services.
Not going to touch that one.
we're not going to touch that.
Not with a 10-foot pole.
And this be in the budget I don't see.
You do have a good hair.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
You.
So I will think about dormers. I will get back to Brian about
Okay,
that.
appreciate that.
And it might be like ideas, and then
Right.
you all kick them around and have questions. And any thoughts you have, I would welcome people who study dormers.
I think we all have it.
We're going to sleep on
It is
dormers.
true that Somerville removed all their, I believe
Can
they
you
removed all their
put
dormer
this idea of an on-call consultant in our
Requirements?
list of-
requirements because they
Figure
were
out what to
clogging
do.
the works in
Yeah.
Somerville. They wanted more growth faster, and so they removed all of it.
Well,
Winchester does not want.
But they have
growth.
tighter lots, so
That's
they
right.
went up.
Yes.
Yeah, they didn't want to do the dormer regulations.
I'm actually talking to them about being a consultant on some bigger stuff, so we'll see.
Worth
I might
asking
put
them
it back
how they
in.
feel about that.
Yeah.
Because I believe they took it out. They removed it recently out of theirs, but.
Well, in
Somerville's
a
different-
town like Winchester, I'm a big believer on 3-4-story buildings having roofs with dormers or gables, because your best buildings have that,
Yeah.
including the one we're in.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, enjoyed
Great to see
it.
you.
It's good seeing people.
It's good seeing you,
Pleasure to see you.
Yes, thank you. Take care.
and
so much.
thank you.
The other thing to think about is if we do move forward with accessory dwelling units,
Mhm.
is a lot of people will be using that, the dormers.
Those
for
shed
them.
dormers, yeah, for
Yeah,
sure, to get the square
yeah,
footage,
yeah.
they'll have to.
And
I
I
missed the presentation.
I hope you managed to see it on WinCam.
No.
It's on video, right?
Ryan sent me the presentation.
It was a great presentation,
He sent me the whole thing.
and it's a really high bar, so, okay.
What do you mean by it's a really high bar?
Anyone who makes another presentation has to meet that bar.
I got it, okay.
Talking about presentation.
I should have done the
standards.
first one, I would have a very low bar.
Okay.
Okay, so we are now moving on to 16 Glenwood Ave, and we're only 4 minutes past where we should be.
You did a great job. Yeah,
Right.
thank you.
Yes,
Good job
yes.
moving us along.
And I believe, there is a person in the audience for 16 Glenwood? Is there? Oh, okay, well, then there's a person in the
Well,
audience.
that's you then.
So I think what we'll have our discussion at the board, and then if we have any questions, we will call you forward. So why don't we start with discussing this, and as usual, or as is customary, we're going to have Brian give us his opinion first, and then we'll go around.
I'm just gonna get the site plan up.
And I have only one brief comment. Who produces these maps?
Assessor's department, and they just get it from the assessor's department.
This is way out of date.
Yeah, I noticed it was wrong, even for
It is
this law.
totally wrong. It is, this
There's a
whole-
lot of-
This whole section doesn't exist. All of these homes abut each other. So I don't know where this is totally wrong. It took me 15 minutes to figure out that this was wrong, because I was like, where the heck is this?
Yeah, I was confused because the
I
lot
had the
lines had
same,
changed.
there was inconsistency in the footprints, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and I was
Yeah,
looking
yeah, I
for,
was-
Yeah,
I was also
the
going,
footprints are certainly,
No, but
but you're saying the lot lines,
Lot
that's
lines.
the
different.
lot lines are totally different. For instance, there is no lot here which is 14,000 square feet. And yet
They've all
this
been
is it.
subsumed by these lots.
And if you look on Google Maps, you can actually see that these lot lines meet in the back. So the actual assessor's drawing, or I should say the plot drawing is correct, but if you try to match it to what's on this assessor's drawing, it's totally wrong.
To be honest, I don't, I mean, that's,
Yeah.
the point of this is to get the lay of the land, and I
Yeah.
just I either go to the site or like, I don't.
All I'm saying is that this is
That's-
way out of date.
Okay. So petitioner seeking a special permit and site plan review in order to construct an addition that will be located closer to the front property line than permitted as of right. In addition to petitioner, it's site plan review because it's for a second dwelling unit and a two-car garage where the total area of the duplex will be greater than 3,600 square feet. The property is located in the RG and contains 14,669 square feet. So I said that I believe the proposed design layout would fall under the definition of a duplex, meaning that due to the cohesive elements of the project that make it appear as a single-family home. The second unit in the garage, I didn't fully understand, and there could be a very specific reason for it. I didn't fully understand why it was taller than the main house. It looks like it looks taller than the main house. If the second unit or garage, whatever we're going to call this, could be the same height or even shorter than the main house, I think I would have no problems with that. I don't know why it would, and like I said, there might be a very specific reason why it needs to be taller. I don't know, but I think if it could be the same height as the main house, I think that would be great. Another issue is the left side setback, which would be greatly reduced as part of this proposal. My recommendation is to change the height to be more in line with the main house or even possibly lower, and adhere to the left side setback as it's only 2.1 feet away from compliance. So I figured those two things, the garage width therefore should go instead from 25 feet wide to 22 feet wide. That should take care of the setback issue, the left setback issue. And if it's possible to get that roof down, I have no other issues with the project.
Okay. So why don't we go around the table? Heather Hannon, you want to start?
Okay. I agreed with what Brian said about the height, and to that point, I felt like there were some elevations missing. So like the rear elevation and then the right elevation aren't there, just to get a sense of the scale of the house and how much bigger that
Would be.
addition will feel. Yeah, I just wanted to see, I couldn't, and then on the plans, it doesn't show the existing second floor. So I couldn't tell, I mean, I'm assuming there's a second floor because there's a staircase.
Here's the side
Yeah,
elevation right here on,
but the second floor wasn't there, and I couldn't tell how high the house was.
You don't really
there
have
is-
that
That's the
measure.
left,
so that's the side which
that's
is,
the left, and then I
Oh.
couldn't see the right side to see a second floor on
Oh.
the main house.
Yeah, I think.
Oh, the
well,
main-
we can ask the applicant, but I believe it's because it's not part of the project. Maybe they didn't supply it.
yeah.
I don't know, maybe, I
Yeah.
mean, it makes sense that they should have.
There's, in this picture, you can kind of get an idea. but
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I did think it was weird that the massing of the addition will seem so much bigger than the way the house reads from the street. I know it's a big house, but it doesn't really read that way because of the, I don't know, the way it's laid out. It seems from the street like it's not as big as that a garage will probably feel. The dormer wings from the front popped out at me, especially because we've been talking about
Right.
that. I don't mind it from the side, but from the front, it seems silly if you're doing something new to intentionally do the pop-out dormers from the front, you know, because you're sort of choosing that elevation from scratch. Those were my main comments.
They're set back though quite a ways.
They are.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's just that when you have a front elevation, it flattens everything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's hard to
it
know
does.
how it'll
It's hard to
feel
tell, yeah.
without like a perspective, yeah. But otherwise, I like the idea of having the second unit above the garage and connected, and I think it reads as a single family from the street.
Okay, are you done?
One other thing, if we're talking about duplexes,
Mhm.
I don't know if, like, since you can't see the front door to the second unit, if this is a different kind of duplex, or just how we talk about that. It doesn't read as
Right.
this is one
That-
unit
it
and
does,
that's one
yes.
unit, but it's one house. It reads as just one house. So-
Exactly.
And
You
the
don't
front
see-
door is
yeah.
on the side. So I don't know.
This is there's no regulations around the duplex other than the regulation that we did in the definition that says it has to read as a single-family home regardless of doors or anything like that. Cohesive elements is, I think,
Right.
But you know, like normally we expect to see two
It would be
front
two
doors.
units. Yeah, yeah,
We
yeah.
don't have those though in North Main in this area. We don't have all those. There are ones where they're stacked and there's one door and then you go into
Mine
vestibule
is
and
one
then they
door,
split.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's there in this neighborhood. There are ones where it is one door leading to multiple floors. There is a house right off of Lynch, the back door to Lynch, that reads just very similar to this actually, not architecturally, but they have the main house and then the garage, and that actually is the second family
Yeah.
is inside.
I don't
that
have a
garage.
problem with it. I was just thinking if we're talking about duplex definitions, then it,
Mhm.
I don't know, it just came to mind. That's it.
Okay.
So I think it's just fine. I was looking at the floor plan, Brian, to your comment of narrowing it up to bring it in. The problem is we are dealing with handicap accessibility
Yeah.
versus dealing with standard building code. So to narrow it up, you almost can't do it because they can't do it because they need that bathroom to be handicap accessibility, they need the hallway to be handicap accessibility, and they need the stairs and the elevator. So those three dimensions are set based on handicap accessibility to get around. So to me, that's one of the reasons you would allow it, is for handicap accessibility. I mean, other reasons we would most likely tell to shrink it up, right? Take a couple feet here or there, but
Yeah.
you can't.
Well, the other things being equal,
Yeah.
but it's not in this particular
I
instance.
mean, there's other things you could do. I was thinking that too, but then like the washer dryer, you could move that out of where it is in the hallway. I mean, you could still
Yeah.
do the layout of the kitchen different. I mean, you could, I think, tighten it up 2 feet if you changed kind of that main entry area.
Well,
See
so
where the
this is where I
washer
was
dryer-
going. So, but then you look at the height of the garage, and it's a 12-foot tall garage from
which isn't-
floor to
it
ceiling
don't
based
need
on the
that high.
drawings. 12 feet is really tall. If they took that out and brought it down to 10 feet even, you'd lose 2 stairs, which moves you the 2 feet in, right? So it is doable, and to get that height down would actually make it much more. The garage right now is actually architecturally is overpowering the main house.
That is,
Yeah.
because it's just,
And if they could just shrink it down in that 2 feet at least, we'd get, the main house would read as the prominent facade elevation. So that's where I'm at. I am in support of it. I just think there can be minor tweaks to just get it, to do it.
Can I say one thing about the big house versus, or the big garage versus the small house? Is I was thinking that too, but then some of the historic houses that have large barns, they read the way that this does, where the barn is actually much larger than the house.
But it's set back, isn't it?
It's
Not in the
not,
house, I mean, I've been to some people's houses where there's a huge barn and then, you know, like a,
I mean, I definitely have.
More
I mean,
modest
there are. It's the
house.
equivalent of like 4-car garages, even which
Yeah.
aren't even like allowed. But yet they. I mean, I have seen them, but usually they're in the backyard or at least not connected.
okay.
Go ahead.
Betsy?
well, you know, I was looking at Brian's comments, and I think, frankly, I think they have a lot of merit to them. But generally, but I have to say, I mean, you know, it's like my heart goes out to the family, because I know this is a difficult issue to deal with. About that. So, but I think they've made some good efforts to doing here, but I really appreciate the other comments from people who are more architecturally oriented than I. So I think we should take that into account,
Okay.
in our opinion.
Maureen?
Yeah, bring the height down. I do wonder, because I was looking at the plans, I probably lost them again, but on the new build over the garage, whether that long dormer, I think I remember, sorry, I'm shuffling paper, I think it was, well, there, I can see dining room, it's marked. So what if instead of it were a shed, what if it were a gable dormers on either side, and maybe you drop the 3 windows down to 2 or whatever, or maybe even 1, but there are different ways you could do it. But I would get rid of the shed dormer total, for the same reason Heather Hannon remarked, it's just not, it's ungainly looking. So anyway, I would pull the height down, replace those long shed dormers with gable dormers. And I had one other, I'm still reading the plans here, but I guess, I often think too that this is, eventually someday, is going to be probably just sold, not demolished, and so I'm wondering, is it going to work as a duplex for another buyer down the road? So I'm trying to see how, I'm on.
That's a good point.
These plans aren't numbered, so I can't tell you what page number, but anyway, I'm looking at the 3rd page in. Proposed first floor plan. Coming in on the new deck, we're entering the door, there's a staircase, and we've got the unit on the left, but we're already in where it's, I would really like the interior to have some kind of a hallway, just the way Heather Hannon was describing, so that you're really in this reception area and you go through one door and you're in one unit and another door and you're in the other unit. And I don't see that barrier here, but you could,
The
somebody.
door's on the left, is that what you're asking about? It's like on the
Yeah.
left side of the house,
But it's a
unless you go
wall.
through the garage.
The laundry shelving is not open to that entry point.
Wait, sorry.
No, you go right upstairs.
Yeah.
No, it
this is-
seems to happen, I'm looking again at this 3rd page, I don't know how to tell you, it
Yeah,
says
no,
proposed
here, it's
first
up,
floor
it's up
plan.
here.
Oh,
Do you
yeah.
want to show them up,
Elevated.
Yeah.
show them what you're talking about on the screen?
I just want to make this a functional structure for subsequent owners, and I think we have some obligation to do that. Well, push up a little more. Here's where we're entering. We come in here, right? Here's our garage, we're coming in the drive. You're coming in here, here's our door, we're
Entry,
going in the
right.
dining room, and this is the unit over here, this is the existing unit. So I just think we're not quite, as I say, I don't see that we're buffered from,
No, the new unit's only above the garage.
Correct.
so then.
You
how do
you go in from the left wall over there, where Brian's hand is.
Right where the hand is.
You can go in that way.
Oh,
So this is, and again, the applicant can
Yeah.
explain
Yeah.
more,
Okay.
explain
No,
more
I'll
in
wait
terms
a-
of the.
I'll drop it,
Yeah.
I don't know, just think about that as when when the house is on the market. How's-
Well,
That's, can I just chime in for a second? Because I think it doesn't have much to do with this process in some ways, how it's marketable, but it might actually be worth the homeowner knowing that if down the road they choose to sell this house, that unit as it currently is designed is actually not, in my opinion, as someone who has a real estate license,
Might not be.
that actually is not a way, you should find a way to separate the two in a more clear way, just slightly, so that you could sell it as 2 units down the road. It gives you more flexibility as a homeowner. However, I think on the terms of our point, it doesn't have much merit, but it does, because right now, the elevator to that second floor unit is currently in a different area than the front door to the unit. So just something for,
I need to consider.
Not fair. So anyway, my comments are for this project, get the height down, and I'd like to see those sheds replaced with something less, more, I don't know what else to say. You finish. You
I
were
like the idea of the gable dormer on the
I think
side.
gable
That would look
dormer.
nice. Instead of, yeah,
like that, right?
yeah,
Like a gable.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, they look much
as you've
better.
drawn. Okay, I have nothing much to say because everyone said it. and I concur with pretty much the opinions I've heard around the table.
Exactly.
So, do we have a motion on the table?
Do we want to?
Or any questions?
Or any questions, are there any questions of the homeowner?
Who happens to be right here, so.
I like to do the homeowner's feedback. if we can.
Okay, we are technically 5 minutes late, but sure, why not, would you like to come forward and? Give you a couple minutes to, if you could identify yourself, and as soon as you see, just so that your voice goes into the microphone, please.
Michael Bauer. Okay, so the way we've designed it is that the second floor unit would be completely separated from the regular house. If, somebody could go in the side door here, up these stairs, and get into the second unit, or even come up and down this set of external stairs. If and when it's our daughter occupying the space, we would either have a stair lift on that stair, and at that point, we might think about adding a door here or something to connect it to the actual house. Or we would, install this elevator, or if we install it as we build it, then she would have access to that apartment from our house.
Oh,
As it stands now, it's a separate space.
so if I could clarify something, because I think I'm confused. So what you're saying is this floor is actually not part of the apartment?
Correct. That's
So
the first
this is-
floor.
This first floor is attached to the main house?
But doesn't that lift go straight up into the second unit?
So there are two lifts marked there. This is an elevator lift that would go to the second floor, if and when. And this is a wheelchair lift that will get her from the floor of the garage up to the level of the first floor of the house.
Okay.
Okay.
And we'll have that for sure as we build it. That'll be something that we'll put in.
So to Heather's point, if you sold it and someone that was owned by someone else, they could just go from the garage and the lift right up, like from your house to the second floor.
Well, I think the idea, you could use it like a rental space, I guess. That might be attractive to somebody who is buying the house.
It's the elevator. So right now, the elevator is in one unit.
Yeah, that's what I
Going
mean.
to another unit as the stairs and everything are separated. But the elevator, if you went and built the elevator.
Right.
That now is, they have to
There's no
go, to get to
security,
it, they
like
have to
the
go
twin-
through your house to get to the elevator, to get to the unit. Just, that's the thing. So the elevator itself is not separated out as part of that unit. It's just a common.
That's true.
choice.
The other thing we might do, again, is a stair lift around that inside stair,
And then not do the elevator.
and not do the elevator. We're still kind of kicking that around. but-
And then that would keep that unit contained, so.
Right.
Because it is,
Less
you are
now.
doing it, the two-family is within your right, so you can sell it as a second unit, you could rent it out, you can, that's why I was just making the comment, that's more to you. That's
Yeah,
just,
we really don't have any plans to be landlords in the near future, but that might be attractive to somebody down the line.
Yeah.
But not your concern right now.
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
And did you have any feedback on the height of the garage being 12 feet
I don't
tall?
really have any idea as to why it's as tall as it is. It might be to make the garage, like once you go up, right, these are two different heights. This garage here is ground level, and then this is a few feet taller, and so that difference in height might be what we're making up for with that
The
garage,
ceiling height on the back.
in the garage, right?
Got other stuff.
Oh, I get it.
But I'll talk to, I can talk to my architect about it and
So
see.
did you understand what he's saying? Is the reason the garage is the height it is so that because the back behind the garage is at the same level as the main portion of the house, the garage is compensating for the difference in that height. So the ceiling height of the garage now aligns with the ceiling height of the main house.
Yeah, you can
But-
see the stairs.
That's just a guess, but I
But
imagine that's why.
wouldn't the second floor then align with the existing second floor?
It actually does.
So then,
Because the second floor, based on this, is coming in where that dormer starts.
right, so you're still talking about this,
There's still that extra bit.
there's-
It's the angle of the pitch of the roof, because they could change the pitch of the roof.
right, but,
But that's why the 12 feet, it's 12 feet, as their ceiling on the first floor is not 12 feet. But there's a 3-foot, looks like a 3-foot, I'd estimate, riser.
but if you're lining up the floors, the first floor and the second floor, then the height of the second floor should equal the height of the second floor in the new addition, which still doesn't, I'm still confused as to why you then need extra space on top of that.
Because it's the pitch of the roofs.
Right,
So it's just the design.
right.
Okay. Okay. Any further questions? Thank you very much for
Thank you.
coming by.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Was the dormer discussion clear? The
Yes.
different kind of dormer on the side?
Oh.
It's
Smaller,
like this?
smaller dormers and more dormers.
Not
No, she
smaller.
was talking about a different shaped dormer,
A-
a
a-
gable that has a point when you look at it from the side.
Right. Yeah.
The
Yeah, yeah,
this
yeah.
side, and then you can see that on the sides.
Just so that your neighbor doesn't see this just huge dormer.
So that gives you more of a square look from the front rather than the side, is that?
It's from the side you have.
Is that preferable?
Point.
Yeah, there you
Well,
can
because
see.
this is not in perspective, so it's kind of difficult, but
Oh,
it
okay.
sets, instead of having this flat, here, this coming in and this flat side, it adds this setting back, so it just gives more shape to it from the side.
Okay.
Then you could also do, if you wanted a vaulted ceiling in there, versus here, you're kind of losing your vault. It'd be kind of cool for her dining area, but.
It's like if it came out of the house like this.
Right, right.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And do we have a motion?
We have our sheets.
They're here.
Oh, our sheets. Okay. Yeah.
Doesn't look like I have everybody's.
Uh-oh. Mine's transferable.
Right, no, mine, I keep my name on it, so.
Well, that's what the others. I don't know.
Comes from teaching, I collect stuff and I distribute stuff.
Possibly they're in your packet somewhere that you took with you
Yeah,
last
probably.
time.
Yeah,
So-
probably, which means it's probably sitting in the room.
Not good.
All right,
Oh, well, so just like.
so I recommend favorable action with conditions with regards to the petition 3867.
Say, what?
No, it's gotta be 9.
3867.
Oh, the petition number. I thought you were talking about a section number. I was like, what are you?
Yeah, we're
what? I
all
was like,
looking for
that's-
section 3.
That's no.
Or just the petition number, yeah.
With the following conditions.
Yep.
The, well,
It's 4 probably, isn't it?
that there are 2 issues we really came up with, which was the height
Height to be reduced.
be reduced to,
We said 2 to 3 feet.
No, it's really the relationship with the main house.
Yep.
It's not-
Right.
Right.
We're not doing
So-
feet here.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I'm just looking at the criteria real quick. All right, so we are looking at 9.4.2 special permit criteria number 4. And we're looking at 4A,
Yep.
that the prevailing scale of the current house becomes compatible with the garage, right?
Yeah.
By reducing the height of the garage.
Okay. I would say the
That's
current
back-
scale of
Yeah,
the
see,
new
right.
addition,
So what I-
current scale of the addition is compatible with the house. Because
Yes.
otherwise they'd pop up the house.
Right.
Heather, I think really probably B and C are better because A has to do with the neighborhood, whereas B is the actual just design of the building all by itself.
Well,
little
Brian
lonesome.
had mentioned the scale of the neighborhood.
Oh, okay.
The house itself is a scale of neighborhood.
Okay, good,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
remarkably
Okay,
so.
Go for it.
And then the other one is then B, the architectural features, and that is the dormers.
Yep.
Be considered to change to a which is a shed dormer to gable dormers.
Yeah.
Which one is architectural feature? That is,
That is,
oh, that's
B.
B, so it's
9.4.2, number
9424.
4B.
yep,
All right, so I have a motion for favorable action with the following conditions. Height to be reduced to be less than the main house, citing 9.4.2, number 4A. The scale of the garage should be compatible with the house. 2, the architectural features should be changed. The shed dormer should be changed to a gable dormer according to 9.4.2.4B.
But you said less, I think it's lower if you.
It's a height to be reduced to be, it says less, so lower than the main house.
I would say
Say
lower or
at the
equivalent.
height
or lower than,
I
Lower
agree.
or equal
I'm
to.
fine if it's equal to.
I am too.
Okay. Second?
Okay, we have a second. Betsy seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed?
Wait, I was still thinking.
Oh, I'm
about the-
sorry, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You don't have time to think on this board. It's
Well,
like,
you gotta ask for discussion after the motion.
I'm sorry. Ask for discussion on the
Fair
motion.
downs.
I
Housing
was just
production
wondering if we
plan.
wanted to put anything about the set, changing the width of the garage if possible.
Oh,
That
yeah.
got lost.
It got lost.
Well, it sounded like it went away because it seemed like it would be quite difficult.
To
Well,
narrow it.
maybe we can make a
Portions.
Just in case
recommendation.
There's no neighbor and we don't know,
I mean,
If you wanna.
You
make
could
it-
add, yeah, you could
I
add
don't
to
put a
the
lot,
motion.
just
you
talk
could
about
amend the
it.
motion.
No, it's fine.
I mean, I think it's worth, well, I can't amend the motion,
I
but
mean, you could say anything from, it's whether it's a condition, you can say the condition like the way we've done this, that it's like the only way it would be favorable if, that's the way we've done this. Or you could say to make every best effort to
Say, like,
something, I mean,
consider.
you can shape it any way you want. But right now, the way we have these two, it's that it's favorable if these two things happen. If they lower the height and change the dormer to a gable.
but adding a suggestion or recommendation is perfectly acceptable.
You
Can
can
we
say it's
just add
reco-
suggest?
You can say a
narrowing?
recommendation to, yeah, you can say
Yeah.
recommend, rather than saying it's an actual condition, it's like
Yeah.
not to be, you say recommend,
Okay.
yeah, something like that.
Well, all of ours aren't conditions, ours are recommendations to the ZBA for
Always.
conditions.
Always.
No, but the way that the motion is kind of, it's basically saying, yes, it's all we're doing is recommendations, but the way that,
With the condition.
yeah, with these conditions, this is, if we don't want to make it as strong, which are these other two, this third one could be
I-
different, you could say it a different way.
Let me just point out that the reason that we are thinking of allowing the extra width is because there is the possibility that this might require ADA.
Or ADA
but-
accessible.
But we don't know that.
We don't know that. That is, it's possible that this may not be used that way. So the question is, how do we want to go on that? Are we going to
Well, we don't
say,
have the architect here saying it has to be this to
Because
fit
of,
the
yeah.
turning radius. So I'm just saying lightly consider,
Yeah.
since we don't really
You
know.
could, well, you could say recommend to shorten the width of the garage if possible,
Yeah.
I don't know, something like that.
It's hard to soften it a little.
okay, is that?
Is that what you'd
Yeah,
like?
that's fine.
I
Okay.
just don't think we should assume
Narrow-
things and
narrow
allow
the
people to
width.
go into these setbacks if we don't really know why they're doing it.
Right.
Good point.
Well,
So,
that would imply you would prefer it a condition?
well, I would, let me take this,
Recommend that
let
the
me
ZBA
take,
review the width of the garage.
well, I'd say recommend to narrow the width of the garage if ADA allows.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank
yeah.
you.
How about that? I mean, that's
Okay,
clear, that's the issue.
yes.
And then the
covers
architect
us.
will be present.
So, okay, again, the motion on the floor is favorable action with the following conditions. Height to be reduced to be lower or equal to the main house, citing 9.424A, scale of the garage should be compatible with the house. Number 2, architectural features should be changed to a gable dormer, not a shed dormer, 9.424B. Recommend to narrow the width of the garage if ADA allows.
Okay,
All the vote.
Okay.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Nay. I mean, jeez.
That's a
We're not done this
5-0.
evening either.
5-0 Liz.
Clarify that with our recording secretary.
There was a pony in here.
Okay, let's,
Okay.
okay.
Do you want to
Okay.
collect those of us who've managed to hang on?
Yes, so we can hang on to these.
Should do
I
that
can
as
make
a
more
routine.
copies if you can't find them.
Find my
Thank you, Brian.
Then you have to make copies with long strings on them, like mittens.
Exactly.
Your pile is going to grow
Well, my pile actually might have got recycled.
Okay, so
eventually.
we are now, unfortunately, 20 minutes past, so let's get on to our tear down prevention discussion.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Thank you.
Thank
By the
you.
way, Mr. Howard.
So I had sent this around. This is 6 pages. This is Lexington's dimensional regulations and dimensional table that are related. I was basically requested to look at specific dimensions and how they could whether it's height or FAR, how it actually potentially prevents tear downs.
I don't think
Wait.
I got an email about this.
No,
No.
you didn't?
So who requested it?
You know what? I think that maybe it only went to Maureen and I.
Oh, I thought it went
Is
to
that
the
possible?
planning board.
I thought I did it to the whole planning board. It was its own email. Anyway,
Yeah,
these are,
anyway.
it's not dense. I mean, we're gonna basically be looking at the table.
What,
perfect.
no, what?
What
so you said
started this?
You mean?
Yes.
No, what I'm asking is where this stems from.
This,
Lexington.
well, what happened was Maureen would like us to discuss the ways that we can discourage tearing down homes.
Especially
And,
the small ones.
and that was her, she wanted to put that on the agenda.
So what is the findings?
And, well, the findings, well, one of the ways of tearing, one of the ideas Maureen had was to see about if you limit the building height. So if we reduced our maximum building height, it
From
would.
40 feet.
From 40, what, how much? How much?
40 now.
To
Wait,
35.
can we back
30.
up just for a second? We
Sure.
talked at the last meeting when she suggested that about having more background for discussion, and maybe since I'm new, I thought that meant more information on the problem, like how many tear downs are we having, what year
no.
construction are we
Oh, yeah.
talking
That's
about?
all in the red
We
book.
do have
Does that
a,
exist somewhere?
yes,
Yeah.
it does
Yeah.
In
exist.
that red book, right
We'd
there.
love to see
Okay.
that brought in, and, because it should be updated, I believe at
Yes.
least to 2017.
Yeah, Brian keeps it up. Yeah, Brian keeps it updated.
Yeah,
Well, the
yeah.
last
tear down
Matthew
map?
was doing it, is Brian doing it now?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, because we do
Okay.
have,
It's-
we have
it's done in
numbers, we even
engineering.
have the
I
developers.
can get that to you anytime.
So do we
We
have
repeat customers
numbers,
Like
just
who's
general
doing it?
numbers?
About 30 to 45.
A year.
45 being the like absolute
How many are
most.
the same developer?
The same developer?
She's
There's
saying,
probably 5 to 6 of the same developer.
Yeah, I mean,
that's
out of those-
roughly off the top of my head.
Out of those 30, there's one developer that, there's probably one developer that has like 5, that probably has 4 or 5 of those 30.
Right.
More than that, I bet.
But,
I think.
Because he has different names of LLCs.
No,
but,
I,
but,
yeah.
but that kind of doesn't feed into this discussion. because-
Right.
I
Anyway.
wondered if
So-
that existed and.
But we
Yeah.
should
Right.
have a
So, yeah,
presentation.
it
'cause
kind of,
I've not
it
seen
kind of
one
stemmed from,
since last year.
so it kind of stemmed from the idea of, well, if it was 30, if the height in town was 35 feet, what would that do? Or is the fact that we have 40 feet, what is that doing? So I think that's kind
It
of,
may be a separate issue.
it could be a separate, yeah, it
It is an
definitely.
issue, but it may be a
I
separate.
mean, certainly, the new homes are being built to 40 feet.
Right.
Yeah.
they
They're
are.
maxed
And that's
out.
an
Right.
issue.
So the question is, if you lower it, will they still be able to squeeze in their 50,000 square feet or whatever they're aiming
Head in a
at?
different direction. Lexington, this massive, multi-year, multi-staff, multi-consultant study, and they ultimately came out with a bunch of ideas about what kind of town Lexington wants to be. And the thing I read, it actually, now is this, we got 2 different sections of their zoning bylaw? No, purpose, look at page 3. Lexington seeks to have a socially and economically diverse community. So this came out of what the background of all this is this huge interactive process. They went
10 year.
10?
No, it
No.
didn't take 10 years.
No,
It
but
was,
right.
they looked at every new house over the past 10 years.
Right.
Okay,
So,
interesting.
but also engaging with their community. And then they went into town meeting and they did pass some zoning changes. So those were to address specifically the tear downs and the loss of their smaller houses.
But
So
I see them
somewhere-
constantly right over the town line. There's like 5 this year that I drive past.
So that's all questions, exactly.
I mean,
But
doesn't
they
seem to be
did
doing
some
anything
things that I am assuming had they had some concept of what they were trying to achieve. Now, whether they've achieved it, I don't know, but.
I don't know if they're achieving
But-
it.
No, I would say no.
Maybe they're doing better than they were. I don't know.
Well, I think.
Anyway, go for it. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
there's a couple of things. The biggest thing that came out of Lexington in recent years, specifically related to what we're talking about, is this 4.4. This, so if you go to the page 4, this is their. To be fair, it's kind of a complex. Yeah, it's kind of a complex way to do it. But this is what happens when you do a very detailed analysis of every new house that has happened over the past 10 years. So I don't know a lot of exactly how this came about. Meaning that I don't know I see that the purpose is basically to have diverse types and sizes of housing.
Yeah.
I get that. What this takes into consideration is the lot size. So it's not just what zone you're in, which I think is a positive. This is a positive thing. I agree with this. This takes into consideration that on its face, a larger lot should produce, or a larger lot can accommodate a larger house. So
Yeah.
This is basically just FAR. It's not
Yes,
really, it's not
yes, but it's a
helping
very
small
complicated
houses,
way-
But
it's
it's not getting to this small and medium-sized house.
Not
Not really.
It's telling you how big your house can be.
well,
Especially
the thought,
since
the
it's-
thought is that on the smaller lots, it's limiting the size of the house, so it's limiting the profit of a potential
Right,
builder.
right.
So there is the actual analytics behind that. I can't tell you, but I believe that is the point.
But this is, if we did something like this in our town.
Or
and-
FAR, or
If we did FAR, just the way they have it, and we
Mm-hmm.
took our lots, and we look at the bigger lots and say,
Yeah.
you can do this, when you have a bigger lot, you can go maximum gross floor area of 9,000, and, they don't even have a maximum gross for the under 5,000. What's gonna create is we're gonna create, like, this is the small neighborhood, this is the mansions, this is.
that's
Right.
already,
But
we're
we
already
don't
there.
have
We're already there.
No,
So
we
I-
don't actually, because we are getting some bigger houses in different parts of the community, because it's not.
You want
I
big
think-
houses,
I
but
mean,
the
I
lots
think-
are tiny
I mean, I think generally what
Can-
people are doing are building what they can according to zoning for them,
Exactly.
whenever they can.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
Right,
building to the.
right.
So they're doing that now. They're
Building
building the
code.
biggest house they can possibly build right now. All this is
Right.
doing is saying what that number is.
Right.
Can I don't understand your comment, because we currently have, okay, please explain more what you
Well,
mean.
what we currently have is you're reviewed, because based on the impact, how if you're in a smaller lot and you build a house bigger, you're being reviewed to see the impact of that house on, because you're closer in proximity.
Exactly, because impact on your
Right.
setbacks.
What they're doing is pretty much saying, if you are in RGB 20,
Mhm.
you can have a maximum gross floor area of 5,000 square feet. However, if you're in RGB 10, you can only have a gross square foot of 3,000 or whatever you put on your table. And what it's doing is it's limiting, it's making it, it's saying, this neighborhood can only have this size houses, this neighborhood can have this size houses, and this can have that. And our housing stock is not consistently all one size.
That's true.
Well, that's a
It's not
problem
one size
already.
fits
But that's the
Well,
problem.
it
So
is.
some of
No,
the
it's
neighborhoods
not.
with the small
It is.
lots, the houses were small.
No.
And so all the new ones are huge, and then there's this tiny one next to it.
Rangeley is a good example. You have a very diverse square footage of your houses in your neighborhood.
Yeah, but the zoning has, actually, that was one of the issues, was because the zoning's for much smaller lots, so it would have.
So the gross floor area is still there, but you still have setbacks. So it's not like the setbacks go away.
That's right.
So there's,
For the height.
but I mean, your concern is that there'll be neighborhoods of big houses or not. Basically, what's happening is we have zones of that.
Right, exactly.
So what? So instead of having, yeah. So, but if anything, it wouldn't be neighborhoods. I think it'd be the opposite, because within one neighborhood, you could have multiple different types of
Actually, think
of
about
lots,
it.
exactly.
multiple different sizes
seeing.
of lots.
Yeah.
That's
Regulating
absolutely,
that gross floor area, though.
But that's exactly
One
back
area is
to,
allowed, can only go up to so big, the other area can go up to.
Not one area. That's we're getting away from the area.
right, right.
So we're doing, I think the idea that they're doing is saying they're getting rid of the zoning portions of the,
Yeah,
they're getting rid of
Right.
the gross floor area as it relates to the zoning. It should be based on the lot size.
Right.
So if any, yeah, so I
If we
think.
make to Rangeley, we've got some very small lot sizes, and we've got some extremely large ones, but it would allow for the small, it wouldn't allow, so those small houses now are getting torn down, and they're actually going right to the zone, which is these, frankly, we've got really tiny side yard setbacks, and so they're just these monster things.
But how does that
Oh, yeah.
change? If you're
I
setting
can
the gross
think-
floor area off that square footage, you have a small house on a big lot, and you're setting it, saying they can go up to a 5,000 square foot house.
They're already like that.
She's
why
saying
don't-
there are some
This-
small
this
lots
would
in her
actually
neighborhood
help
that are getting huge
In a
houses.
neighborhood where you've got
There are
small
big
houses.
lots too, and they're just, it's gonna happen on big lots with small houses too.
Yeah, the big houses aren't getting demolished, it's the small houses, so you
I
gotta keep
guess
thinking small houses.
I'm trying to understand
That's true, and increasing
how,
housing costs.
so first off, we already know that if you're on a large lot, they're going to be, if they tear something down, they're going to build a big house.
Correct.
So this doesn't change that.
Correct.
That's not happening everywhere, but that we're seeing a lot.
But this doesn't change that in the sense that you can always build something that's smaller if you want to.
Right.
I don't think this is stopping the tear downs. I think this
That's-
is doing something
This
else
is-
that we are not at this point.
Well, the question is, what tear downs are we trying to stop? Are we trying to stop the small ones or the big ones?
Small ones.
To get back to some of, to what we're going to be picking up later on, which is the housing affordability.
Right. So,
When we get into that whole discussion, that's where it does make a difference.
so if we're focused on trying to limit the size of houses on the small lots, which presumably is where most of the small houses are, then this,
Oh, no, because some
No,
of the
'cause
small
some of them
houses
are
are on
the
big
bigger
lots.
lots,
Actually,
yeah.
those are the most vulnerable.
Those are the
They're the
ones that
most-
get knocked
yeah,
down, the like
it's true.
60s houses that
Right,
are
right.
small on a big
but
lot.
if you are to, but no one is going to sell a small house on the big lot except for huge amounts of money regardless because of the land cost.
It's
Well, it's
happening
mo-
everywhere,
well,
that's
well,
why
it's
the
mostly on the
knockdowns
la-
are
it's
happening.
mostly on the
But
land
my
cost.
point is that a small house on a large lot is going to be much more expensive than a small house on a small lot.
Yes.
So it's not really more to, the affordability goes with the lot size in a sense. So you can maintain this cape, but you're still, the land value is going to be,
But developers are still buying them.
right, but the point is, you're not going to be able to sell that house for this, you're not going to increase the affordability of a small house on a large lot,
Well, any.
because it's always going to be much more expensive. Because even if you don't, I mean,
Accessory dwelling units will help.
yeah, I'm just,
It will.
I think.
there's a lot of tear downs in my neighborhood, and it's very small lots. And I would say that over the last 10 years, there have been 15 tear downs in a 2 blocks radius. I'm
Yeah. No,
perhaps
I think that-
exaggerating.
I think you're right.
So if we're gonna, I'm not sure which is more vulnerable. I think in that sense, we really do need to look at statistics to see where the small houses are being torn down.
We've mapped it.
Yeah, we know we're there.
Yeah, and so the question is, how are we, if we're looking to prevent tear downs of small houses, which are the ones that are most vulnerable? And, I mean,
So,
I just think that even if they're trying to do this in Lexington, they're saying that a 4,000 square foot house is okay on a lot area of 5,000 feet.
yeah, I mean, so I
Which-
don't know if any, so.
Which
yeah.
is ginormous.
So, yeah, they're
So-
going to 9,000 square feet I mean, this is not Winchester, first of all. A
Right.
lot of these numbers.
Well,
So I think that there were two ways to go about looking at tear downs slash mansionization. One is through a review process, which we
Right.
decided to do 2 years ago now.
And maybe I'll jump in and say, but with very conservative numbers, maybe we want to revisit.
Compared to
those.
this, no, not, I mean, I don't
We don't
know.
want to look like.
But I mean, we're reviewing, so we're
No,
reviewing,
Conservative meaning.
I mean, yeah, I mean,
Big numbers.
so 3,600 square feet is the smallest number that we have. I think that does capture nearly 100% of the duplexes. Not quite, but certainly all the new ones. Maybe we wouldn't get some of the ones that are getting additions on them or whatever. But I think that Lexington decided to go a completely different approach in sort of to tackle the same thing, mansionization.
But they have site plan review too.
They do, but the way that they look at gross floor area, which is the way we look at, where we look at square footage based on a zoning basis, meaning in the RG, it's we
Right.
use 3600. They're using an FAR essentially, but the way that they've done it is there's no review. It's just saying, you want to build a big house, that's fine. You can go up to this mark and that's it. Forget site plan review. So this is how they do it.
Later
Yeah,
than
that's
that.
the
But
max that you can do.
these
yeah.
numbers are very large.
Very
They're
See,
huge,
I would,
yeah.
I would suggest that if we were to think about FARs, we say, okay, we're going to look at neighborhoods. And we're going to look at what the size of the home is historically in that neighborhood and its FAR. And we say, this is what we're aiming for. And then we craft an FAR based on neighborhoods.
So that's essentially what they did.
Right,
For their housing
Their-
stock,
yeah.
which
Well,
is
I'm
clearly
just-
different
well,
than
let's-
ours.
Different than
Right.
ours,
But
yeah.
the historic FAR is different than this.
Yeah.
Their historic houses also were not this large.
No.
right.
Right.
Yeah, they don't make 4,000 square foot.
FAR and try to stay closer down.
Yeah, I mean, we know what we want our neighborhoods to look like.
Delete the houses built in the last 10 years.
Yeah. I mean, one of the problems with looking at new builds is when they start taking over neighborhoods, there's actually facts on the ground, and if you have to start taking those into account, you've lost the neighborhood. So I mean, we have GIS information for floor area. We have lot size. Well, it's good enough.
We have lot size.
But we also have building outlines. They may not be perfect, but they're better than nothing.
They're better than nothing.
So we can just say,
Yeah, the assessors,
let's-
they're going to give you straight.
what we
square
would
foot.
need to do is we'd need to say, we need to look at these the neighborhoods and say, this is a cohesive neighborhood, this is a cohesive neighborhood.
So is
You
that
can
outside of the
calculate-
zones? Because this does still, this lot area thing is just all by its little lonesome. It's
Yeah,
just
this is not zone based.
This is completely outside of the
When you're
zones.
saying, look at the neighborhood, that's neither fish nor fowl. It's not our zoning as it stands, and it's not what Lexington.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Exactly. This would be-
Hang on, but there has been, I gather, because I remember years ago, FAR, you couldn't regulate FAR. I remember that said, at least.
You couldn't
remember?
regulate sizes.
Oh, no, FAR, you could.
It's just, you can't say you can't limit the
It
gross
is.
size.
We could have a map done that shows FAR for neighborhoods. You have the square footage and GIS of each of the.
Yeah, it's just that
houses.
you'd have to draw the neighborhood so you can get an average, that's all. Is you'd have to actually select the group of this chunk of
Yeah,
houses
where do
and
you
say,
stop?
But you could have a gradient, like yellow is, this number through this number, and just all the lots are different colors, and
okay, so then you,
see it
so you could see it,
if
yeah.
someone did a nice
Yeah,
map.
would be a
Yeah,
visual.
so we could do that.
Yeah.
Could we get Brian to do that?
Yeah.
The other, I wasn't here for the presentation, but if you start messing with the FAR of the lots, you're going to mess up with the opportunity for accessory dwelling
I mean, I think it's going to be the same thing. I mean,
units. No, because we don't have accessory dwelling units. So if we are bringing accessory dwelling units, and I can assume that, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, that if we did accessory dwelling units, that they have to be in the rear and they can't
No.
impact the street, or they're embedded in the house. If they're individual structures, they can't be at the street, they have to be behind.
we talked about a number of different ways because it could be
we
like
did- we
what we
didn't
saw
come
today,
up with
like in a
anything
garage
specific.
that's
Talked about
connected to the house.
garages in the
Yeah,
backyard.
it's embedded in the house, or if it's a standalone unit, it's in the rear. Or
Could be.
Right, so you're saying you'd be adding new square.
We're
Well-
adding, and so
Yeah.
we don't have any historical records to look at that. So whatever, if we go and look at trying to stop I want to know a statistic of the tear downs and how they have shifted since the historical commission has changed the demo delay bylaw, and see
That's a good-
if
that's a good
that has,
question.
because rumor is from the construction industry that's working in town, is they are more looking to restore and do additions to buildings.
We are seeing some of
Then
that.
they
That's
are
a
looking
fact.
at
Well, let's-
tearing
let's-
houses down, but they are doing additions to
Let's
them.
put
which is
that on another,
expanding
yeah.
square footage.
I mean,
So there's 2 points. So the accessory dwelling unit gets us affordable units in town, right?
Yeah,
This is another alternative to look at to try to maintain without adding. Really it's trying to keep it just stated. So it's really deciding where are we going and how are we doing that. Because they don't work together in a lot of ways, because you can't use historical data and say, okay, well, all the houses in this.
but what we can do is we can look at the historical FAR and we can see how would that affect an ADU. So having that data allows us to see whether there would be a detrimental effect or not.
I think still almost most of the, if there's any new square footage, I mean, I don't really know this, but if there's gonna be any new square footage associated with an accessory dwelling unit, I would imagine site plan review would catch it.
Yeah, they would catch it, but you're saying maximum
Well, one thing you could do,
FAR for a lot, and you're using historical data, using the average of an area, then you're not getting any more growth in there for accessory dwelling units.
unless you just,
About
you
1,000 square feet
you,
per
you
lot.
put in you put in an out, and you say, if you're talking about an ADU, then that's a special permit. I don't know if we wanted, depending upon the lot size or the FAR.
It's different, it's another unit. This
Yeah.
is assuming one unit for all these
Yep.
numbers.
The
Yeah.
other thing is with the ADU, in the documents that I was reading, is like you have to have the house in existence for X years, because it's
Oh,
actually
yeah,
more
There's a lot of-
there's a-
valuable to have ADUs on houses than tearing it down and building one, a single house.
There,
Yeah,
we're talking
we-
about this, but there were some where you couldn't do it unless it was built before 1930.
No, I know, I'm just saying, so that, there are other ways to encourage maintaining the houses that we currently have.
Yes.
Like, and adding smaller houses.
Yeah, I mean, we had a presentation for the ADUs, we didn't have a big discussion of it, just
Yeah.
because, so just so you know.
Just
there was-
based on time.
Yeah,
I guess
so,
I just wanna, if the whole goal is to stop, is to reduce the amount of tear downs of houses, because we are always gonna need to have tear downs, because there are houses
Well, there's
that
always
are
gonna be some,
past.
yeah.
They're not historically providing.
Right, or they just haven't been maintained adequately or
Sure.
whatever.
Like the one where
They
the
can
tree
have-
smashed through it twice.
And
Yeah,
there is
I
some
mean-
really
There-
terrible
yes.
architecture that needs to be.
yeah.
Well, that's true,
I
too.
think we, whatever we do, I mean, whatever we look at, whatever data we look at, doesn't prevent us from saying these data are useless, we will ignore them. So I would like to go ahead and at least see what the FARs are,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
existing
yeah.
FARs,
Sure, it's
so we can at least
No, I think we need
understand.
that.
No, I think it's
Yeah.
good information.
And then, I mean, getting an ADU in is going to be a long, hard slog in this town. I mean, we had one person speak to it the last meeting, and she was very concerned about them. So I don't think that her attitude is unusual. So whatever we do, I think what we should make sure of is that whatever zoning changes we make do not negatively affect the possibility of putting in ADUs.
Well, and what I've
But-
seen in other places, not around here, but far off places, is that there are just separate rules for that. Right?
Yeah.
So it would
Right.
be separate from what we're talking about
Yeah.
here. It would be
But-
another
Definitely.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
there's a-
My other question
But-
is whether, on the tear down topic, if, I don't know, your best route, we know Lexington studied it, but if your planners listserv or some other way to.
People are
see what-
studying this I mean, there's
Oh.
constantly people that are
Come up with-
trying to come up, most of it's like there's a lot of demo delay
Well,
questions.
Yeah.
That's,
Um,
yeah, but.
That's
we're
historic.
That's- yeah,
talking
that-
about
that's
too,
not-
about
yeah.
How to encourage small housing.
Right,
Yeah.
retain, it's
I
really.
mean, that
retain.
Retain.
basically goes into I mean, if that's the question, that goes into our next conversation related to
Exactly.
the housing
Production
production
plan.
plan. There's 29 strategies that you guys hopefully looked at that can help with that.
Yep.
So, just because we are running a bit late, I just want to make sure that we've started this discussion about tear downs?
So next, I don't know if it's next meeting, but soon, I just feel like it's way long overdue anyway, and hadn't, I have been wanting to see the updated tear down map, and it's got a separate list, which
That's a
is
good-
the
that's a good idea.
numbers,
Sure.
and it's the
yeah.
breakout by year.
Yeah,
I'll
I'd
get,
like to- I've
So-
never-
I'll send, okay, I'll get
So,
that
so what,
updated tear down map.
one
for
of the
Brian.
things that Brian and I hopefully will be discussing tomorrow morning is how to use our new Dropbox space. And so all of that stuff will get,
But I'd like
Permanent-
that just at a
Statistic
meeting.
sheet-
well, yeah, but,
statistic sheet came out of the historical commission,
yeah,
correct, Brian? It did come out of the engineer's office. The statistical sheet that was used for the demo delay was created by the historical commission, and I don't know. if
That was
they've
me
done
and the historical commission.
it. So you still have it running? Since the demo delay was passed?
No.
So we need to update all that data.
Well, what data are you talking about?
All the engineering, so the engineering has a book, and every time someone pulls a permit to demolish, it goes in the book
Yeah,
with
it's
a
still
picture
there.
of the
That's
house.
still
That's
going,
still
that's
there.
still happening.
Actually,
And
bring the
then
book
there's
in,
an Excel
too.
spreadsheet.
Yeah,
that the
that's still
historical
going.
commission compiled. It was not
Oh.
engineering of those, and the
Okay.
square footage of the original house, what it was replaced with.
Yeah, it was me and the senior that was working with me that compiled
Yeah.
that. So I taught him how to read a site plan and went through all of those. We went through every demolition over the past 2 years.
But
So-
we have not been kept up with that.
No, that was a
That is
snap, that was a
another-
snapshot of a year for the for, you know,
Yeah.
for the town meeting.
And the
Yeah, well,
number-
we should
but it's
be trying to
really
keep up
important
with
because-
that.
Yeah, it took, I mean,
Also,
that's
how
pulling,
long
that's,
does it
okay, so
take?
that's
It takes
going down the
time.
building department, that's pulling the building, that's not looking online on the assessor's database, that's looking at the floor plans, and and most of the time, it's physically adding up all of the square.
So this is a good intern task.
This was an intern task,
Oh.
yeah, I mean,
I thought you
that,
said a senior.
it was a,
He was a senior
He
who
was
it was
was
a
an
senior
intern.
resident.
It was an
Lots of times,
older
yes.
intern.
And-
Because we have some financial incentives for seniors who,
So the point, but I think the takeaway is that this was not a historical commission thing, this was a planning department who did this.
No, it was a historical commission.
Right, but the people who actually did the
Thank you.
work.
Brian did that support for the.
Right, but my point is that the resources that went into it were
Yes.
from the planning department.
Yep,
And so in order to do this again, we would need the addition of another resource to the
Still
planning
have a
department.
senior,
They're starting soon, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so,
The same one that was here,
Fabulous.
but not the same person who did
No, I
the
understood,
review.
but
This,
you got a good
this guy
person.
is much more, he's much more savvy with the website and that type of
Perfect.
thing, so that's good. But
The umbrella, I guess, is what I'm looking for out of that sheet is, how many tear downs are we at right now this year? How many do we have last year since the?
that's easy, that's not,
Yeah,
that's,
And then the
yeah.
square footage. of
Yeah,
the
that,
house.
so that's the part, that's
Years
the,
of house? We have that.
Yes, the years we have.
Yeah, yeah.
Those are on the applications, but.
Right.
the-
no, it's just, you can't just go to the property database and, you know, it's gonna be right most of the time. But if you're gonna look at 40 buildings, you might as well just
So-
go get the actual
okay.
plans.
so the plan of action, which please if you add to your action list, is
Yeah.
to work with the intern to update the umbrella list? Whatever, that's what you keep calling it. The tear down list, to make it current with this year.
It was the
Current-
turn, so
current
it
statistics.
showed square footage, height,
Bedrooms.
lot size, bedrooms, sale price before, potentially listing price after.
Well,
Or
Interesting, do we have a
assessment.
map too?
Yep.
yeah.
Well, we have a turn on, we'd have the map, but we don't have, like, there's no interactive map and data.
The other thing is to ask engineer to update their map with the
Right.
dots and then the list. They
Right.
have the list
Yeah,
of
no,
numbers.
that's the first, is get the updated tear down map from Brian.
Yeah.
Next is update the tear down list that was created by.
And some of that information is interesting to have, but perhaps not as useful to our discussion as it might be in others, so.
No, I mean, the
Like the
big,
listing price and all of that is more, requires more work. So,
We care mostly about the square footage.
the square
square
footage,
footage, the height,
the height,
because
The-
then you can get a scale
right.
based upon that.
So the physical properties of the structure
yeah.
are most important. So all the other stuff,
Yeah.
the data don't have to be complete
Yeah, I
to be
mean,
of use to
the
the
data,
board.
by the way, that we found was that shockingly, the houses are twice as big and 2 to 3 times as expensive. Great, okay.
Really?
duh, like-
Okay.
And the taxes don't compensate for. the-
Okay, so to moving this along, please. So so that's an updated thing. We'll bring that back to another discussion of the tear down.
Hi, John.
Why don't we'll schedule that when we get these data in better shape. Now let's turn quickly to the housing production plan.
Yep.
I forwarded, so I got comments from a few of the members of this board. That was not the only bite at the apple. We'll probably have potentially actually 3 more bites at the apple. So don't,
Okay, so
so,
don't freak out.
no, there's no, so we got the planning board and the select board have been lumped in with the working group in terms of the first pass. So they have MAPC came up with a draft report. We had seen the first half of it already, the second half with updated strategies list. We talked about our last working group, went through each strategy and basically said they were trying to figure out which one of these are absolutely horrible for Winchester and let's take those out. That was most of our discussion, would you say, after we avoided a fire here the other night, literally.
Oh, yeah,
There was
I
a
heard.
fire, smoking air conditioner.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we had to go meet over at the
See,
James.
you don't
So,
show up and exciting things happen.
So,
That's why it's so cold tonight, because there's a new air conditioner.
No, it was actually the air conditioner in there, but they fixed this air
It was so
conditioner.
hot the last couple of meetings
lower
ago.
it.
I can turn it off.
Or
Just-
lower it at least.
I can't
Or
lower it.
Raise it.
No,
or
they
whatever.
they can't.
Actually good.
We don't have
On
control,
or
we have
off?
control over on or off here.
I'm
No,
freezing.
it's,
And
we're
I was
we're almost
dressed
out of
for-
here. So,
All right, so they had come up with all of these potential strategies, and then the first pass is with the working group, select board, planning board, and they're incorporating all of those comments. Then it's gonna go to all the other boards and committees, as well as to the public in the form of a survey as well,
Oh, good.
that
Okay.
MAPC is doing. So, but
That's-
you don't have to do the survey. I mean, it's
No,
more
it's
of,
just
it's.
more surveys.
Yeah, it's,
Sounds
if
like
people
tired
are,
surveys, I
if
think.
people, well, I mean, I don't know how many people are going to read the 100-page document. Maybe they, it's,
But-
I think it's gonna
okay.
be self-limiting because of that.
sure.
Exactly. I mean, it's definitely.
So,
took a while to
so
get through.
after, so this was the first one, then there's going to be one more, and then there will be even a third that we will be able to kind of, like I said, have another bite at the apple.
Yeah, our next, the open period, the public discussion period will be ending, I believe, sometime in mid-September. And then it'll be open for 4 weeks. There'll be about a week or so where they take in all those comments, MAPC takes in those comments and comes up with a new draft. We will then have another go at that. And then,
So are you able to share now, because we couldn't do it, because we can't do it as a planning board, because we weren't in a meeting, and everyone just sent their comments to you. Now that it's on our agenda, can you talk briefly about what you received as comments?
I mean,
I'm interested in hearing what my other members of the planning board felt on
they can just talk.
yeah.
We can
let's
talk.
do that.
sure, yeah, we can do that.
10 minutes.
Yeah, sure. Who wants to go
We can,
first?
so I can send those comments out to everyone as well.
Okay,
Yeah,
then.
but-
If you really want, I mean,
No, I
that's,
just am interested in hearing what other people felt, and, we always
We haven't had a
say
comprehensive discussion.
we're, I
there
think
on
we're
the
kind of
board.
universal on where we all stand on it, that we want this,
Mm-hmm.
but we never about the actual tools or process for achieving that,
I'll go super quick. So they list all these strategies. Most of these strategy, or nearly all of the strategies, are something that we could potentially do something on. I think I was missing, agreeing with John Serbier here, is that there isn't this targeted. How are we going to create how are we going to create 40 units a year or 80 units in 2 years? So that essentially, that's what we all kind of thought this housing production plan was going to do. The select board build this as, we want to figure out a plan in order to get safe harbor.
Yeah.
That is how, regardless of anything, that is how this is billed from the select board
Yeah.
to the town. They're
But-
saying, that's what they're telling the town.
But there's a difference between the housing production plan and the implementation plan.
Yes.
True, because, the housing production plan is twofold. One has to do with actual capital A affordable units, how do you get there? The other is, what are some other things that you could do to incorporate more diverse housing for a number of reasons? Forget equitability, but just the idea that you'll have a stronger real estate market, you'll be able to
More
rebound
diver-
faster, there's downsizing options, there's a billion reasons why we should
There's
be
more diversity in the housing space.
why should we should be creating more diverse housing. That's kind of over here. That's not necessarily why the select board has, decided to put, $50,000 or $60,000 towards this, or whatever. I think it's 45. But
Yeah.
the point is that I was kind of missing a direct approach, as in, here are 5 parcels. You should be able to create X amount of units there's a lot of information in here, and most of it we know, to be honest. The first half is
Yeah.
demographics and
Right.
stuff we know, or stuff, to be fair, maybe we don't. We have it in other plans. Put it that way. So I was kind of missing more of a very direct step-by-step approach. This is more of the kitchen sink
Yes.
kind of approach, in terms of, these are 29 or 30 different strategies that you could do. And like I said, I agree with most of those strategies, but that's not necessarily something we couldn't do on our own.
I didn't look at it, but is there anything about tiny houses?
ADUs.
ADUs.
Not tiny houses.
Not tiny
but
houses.
ADUs, which
You
could
know-
be construed as tiny
So I know they're
houses.
trendy, but I've seen some cool things in magazines about developments of tiny houses and
Yeah,
that people
yeah.
like flock to them. And
Well,
they like really cool architecture.
Yeah, I mean, that is
They're 80, they definitely talk about ADUs. They don't.
ADUs,
Not
yeah.
Yeah, but-
houses are different.
But one of the things,
I mean, like tiny houses.
Well, no, I mean.
I know, I
Yeah,
know.
no,
That might
no,
work,
that's
but then-
different.
But then the
Yeah,
question
but-
is, it's like, where's the land where you're gonna put them on?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, that's
mean-
a whole different issue.
I was just
Yeah.
curious.
Winning farm.
yeah, one of the things that I also,
They preserve
I
the
know, we
town
did talk
smaller,
about
more
that,
affordable.
Yeah.
back when the farm
They don't
first
say how to
came
do
to the
it.
fore, I remember, I
yeah,
was on
well,
that.
one of the
I think I was on-
problems
not
with
really.
this is that there was supposed to be an identification of areas in town that could be,
And they do have that coming in the next one, and
it's not in here.
it's not in here, but because they weren't sure, and this is not, it's a good point, like
They is she, isn't it?
well, it's not just, I mean,
It's
it's not just her in a
MAPC,
room.
it's MAPC.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but,
Five?
What?
yes, but go on, we're running out of
Well,
time.
whatever,
here, so-
they have a data
Let's
team.
be
I mean, there's a number
precise.
there are a number of people
It
that.
doesn't matter, just call them MAPC.
Yeah,
What-
sure. Yeah, no, I
Whatever.
lost it. That was
Okay.
horrible.
You were gonna talk about they weren't sure about the sites.
So they didn't know if it was, like, how appropriate it was to talk about very specific sites, outside of the general ones that we know of, like there's like 416
Yeah,
Cannon Street
so-
that we know if there's an application on file. And I said, no, they're in the working group specifically called out, 10 sites. MAPC can rely on the working group to say that these are 10 sites that we have talked about, whether or not they're completely conducive towards development.
It's different.
I thought that's kind of why we were hiring
Yeah,
MAPC, right? So.
That is one of the, I think, the major failings of that there was no plan or process for identifying these sites.
Not, no, I mean, they go through it so they have an analysis in there that's related
At
to.
this point,
Yeah.
they
Transit and-
asked people to recommend sites, and then they were going to open it up to the public, and then they were going to, so there's no one took a big map
No
of town
analysis.
and said, let's sit down and identify sites.
They had the little sticky dots, and that was kind
But
of.
the problem is that
I totally agree with you.
I thought that was going to be one of the responsibilities of the working group, and that did not happen. And so I'm a little disappointed with that. In terms, like, I'll just second what Brian said. In terms of these strategies, they're all great strategies. Some of them are more doable than others. They're very vague, but a lot of them are very vague. I mean, there's no single way to fix this problem in town, and so we're going to have to hit it from all sorts of different.
So I guess the one thing, picking up on what really it was more picking up on how Brian really reminded me and sort of reeled this back in, is that if the major objective was to try to deal with safe harbor, this is all too diffuse. It just needs to be pruned dramatically and focused like
So
that.
Winchester do this.
Yes,
Yeah, that's what we actually need.
yeah.
So here are all the things that you can do, and they could all help you. They could all help you.
But
It's
what the-
true.
But the question comes down, it's like, how can we most effectively implement? What are some implementation schemes that
No,
we
so I
can
mean,
use that would be most
they
effective?
do go through that. I mean, I don't.
But I said it's diffuse, it's just they.
But it's up to but it's not
Well, a
up.
lot of these don't address that topic. They're really off topic, I guess, if that's, or off the assignment, if that's the assignment.
Well, my concern is that it's not up to the MAPC or any consultant to tell us exactly what we need to do, because those are value judgments that this town has to make.
But it's helpful
I think they're supposed to
respond.
deduce what we're supposed to do based upon what we want.
Right.
Meaning,
We
meaning
hired
that
them.
they're like, you want X, okay, you get there by taking this road.
Right.
Like,
It's how you do it.
yes,
They're
that's
not
what,
actually
that's right.
defining,
No.
they're giving you all these things of how you could go about it, but
Well,
the
it's not
problem
all
is,
just about 40B or safe harbor. Just some of this is just
it's
growing,
not.
it just has to be do with
No, it's
housing
that
general.
yeah, it's this other
Lowercase
yes,
Yeah.
well, or not so much that because it's not just affordable but diverse,
Well-
meaning different sizes of houses so that seniors can downsize, so that first time homebuyers can come in.
I mean, if you look at
We
the,
know all that.
Well, here's a
Yeah.
good example, increase home maintenance and repair resources. I'm all for it, but that has nothing to do with the task that MAPC
Well-
was
That
given.
has to do with keeping people in their homes.
it does, it has something, well, the assignment is to create a housing production plan and to increase the amount of, into, if all we look at is this is a way of avoiding 40Bs, then I
No.
think that misses the point of this whole
It is,
document.
it is. So, yeah,
And so when I look at that, and one of the questions is how do we ensure that seniors can live in town if they want to? So that is one of the goals, was to make it possible for seniors not to have to leave. And if you can keep them in their homes, then that's one way of doing it. So I think that was a goal.
I
Well,
wasn't doing
going to the
contract.
master plan survey, there was questions regarding affordability, capital A, lowercase a. And the discussions at town meeting and stuff, and what, people are interested in affordability with a lowercase a.
Moderately
but
priced homes. This is what I,
That's not called.
Moderately
priced.
Moderately
$1
priced.
million.
What does that
That'll get you a
mean in
moderately
Winchester?
priced.
what does affordable mean with a lowercase a?
It's, each person has a different.
600,000.
Yeah.
Right, so I'm saying, when we say the word affordable, it
You
just,
know, we have
it's
to,
always.
but and I think that with that, at that
Well-
point, it gets
Okay.
down to us,
Let's-
whether it's through survey or otherwise, to be able to, say, fine, how do you define that?
But the majority of the people who took the survey, granted, the survey is not a exact replication of what,
Right.
less than half of the people felt that affordable, as it was defined with the lowercase a in the survey, felt it was of high priority for them.
Because they already live here and bought a large house.
Yeah.
Or even a
So-
small house that
so
wasn't cheap,
it's-
I mean.
No, and then they're making ends meet or struggling to make ends meet or whatever.
Exactly.
But but a majority of people want to get into safe harbor, so as much as the housing production plan is dealing with affordable, the capital A is the biggest concern for residents.
I
And
do
as much
agree.
as,
I do agree.
like,
Yeah.
I know MAPC is we are trying to get out from under a law that we have no control over.
That's right, true.
And we have more control over affordable because we don't have regulations placed on us for the lowercase moderate price housing.
Right.
We have stock in town for moderate price housing, but it doesn't
You
count
can
towards
call it the
affordable.
median.
It's not,
below
well, less than the
median.
median, but, so I think that's where it's difficult because this actually has to be approved by the planning board. The feedback we're getting is focus on the 40Bs.
Right.
Let's find a plan, a long-term plan to get this going. And all the other issues that we're dealing with moderate housing is really important to have in there, but we need a plan for 40B and we need a plan now. And I called Brian, I gave my feedback by phone to him. And my biggest issue is that this report doesn't talk about our growth and what our growth is on a yearly basis, and that our growth is much less than what they are saying we need to do to get in safe harbor. And how do we actually, as a town, deal with that? What are the actual things is it that our tax revenue is off because we're going into an override? We need to know that. Is it that we just don't have the land, or we need to let go of? Are they gonna come out and say that our historical has to take a secondary seat to affordable, to meet the 40B definition of affordable? Like, that is not in here. And so when you look at the biggest development we've had in units is the Philosopher Street, really, in the last recent, right, is the biggest. And that was how many houses?
12, 14.
Green streets.
Which went over 2 years of construction, 14 units. And how many units are they saying that we need to do a year to get to safe?
40.
So, and then that's just units, that's not how many.
If
hits
it's
and then
10%, good luck. You'd need 400 units.
We
to
have,
get
we have a much
10%.
bigger issue, and let's like rip the Band-Aid off and
Well,
let's
it could be
deal with
40
it.
rental units at
That's the-
25%,
so
10
that's
10
my
affordable
question.
would
Exactly.
count.
So if
I would-
how do you steer the ship? And that's why I wanted to get back to that.
But
I don't know
that's
if it's an
every year for
EDIC
how
or
long?
what, but we really need
As
to
long as you
steer
want to
Yeah.
have safe harbor,
Well,
until you reach 10%.
Which is how far are we behind? in
It's not
units?
happening
700
anytime
units.
soon.
there were 700 units, but if we do it the way, the funny way that the state does it, we only need to get, 20% of that. 25,
So
25%.
10 affordable, 30 market rate
Yeah.
Every year.
every year.
But
But-
look at that growth compared to what we are used to as a town.
Oh, yeah, there's,
We're still
Yeah,
gonna have
we're
the
not used to it.
regular standard growth, but now we're gonna build on
But
top of this
I'm-
huge growth.
I'm
We
going
just
to,
don't have the ability right now in our budget, we don't
Right.
know how to deal with it, and that's something that this report should be dealing with.
I'm going to try to stick my foot in here just a bit and talk about the fact that while the survey talks a lot about, well, I mean, I'm not going to dispute that the survey cared more about the capital A than the lower A. The numbers in town certainly indicate that there is a drastic need for affordable units in town for existing people. The number of households which are cost burdened is huge. And I don't think that the people who took the survey had those numbers in front of them. So we didn't have a question saying, here's the percentage of households in this town who are actually cost burdened. What do we need to do to help them?
What qualifies as cost burden?
Over 30% of your income goes towards housing.
Housing.
And
I think it's
I,
about 30, I think it's 20-something% of Winchester is considered house, is it house burden? or
Cost burden.
Cost
How do
burden.
they
It's
know?
called house poor on the
what's
street.
poor?
well, I call them cost burdened
How
households.
do they know? How does anyone know?
They do it by the census. They look at how much, they look at income versus housing cost. I mean, there is actually the ACS, or whatever the heck it's called.
How do you know when somebody, I don't know, how do you know what their mortgage is?
You don't, it's just a,
But it's a number which is
Based
used,
on the average income of the,
it's a number which has been used for many years in terms of looking at these problems. So it's not like they just pull it out of thin air. But the point is that we do have households who are in need. And so when I look at this, I see the word comprehensive, and that's what's important to me. I understand the 40B, we need to do something about 40Bs,
But
but,
it doesn't do that. I'm fine talking about
But-
the moderate housing. It's just, it does not deal with the 40B. I don't see it as dealing with the 40B in a realistic way.
I agree.
but I don't even know if
I
that's
think
the
it's just
point of
not as
this.
targeted. I think they have all of the realistic strategies that you would use in order, that we would use in order to do that. I think what's missing is the on-the-ground, targeted,
Well, I mean,
specific to Winchester,
Amend-
site-wise, where could we even, what do we need to do to get 40?
I'd
Well-
like to know, for example, which I didn't see here, but you can tell me I'm wrong, if, for example, the benefit of rental is much greater on addressing the big affordable, you know, in 40B.
Yeah, because you get that many
So how
more.
do you get to the developers who will put in the rentals with the friendly 40B?
So,
and-
so one of the strategies is me going out and talking to developers,
Right.
having these locus
Right.
events
So
that we
I-
had.
I-
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've done that in the past,
And
but I
I'm
didn't
really
get
interested,
much
there's
out of
one
it.
called Capstone
That's
that
the
met
guy
with
we were gonna
Brian,
talk
and
to,
I thought
yeah.
they
But-
sounded really good, so where are
did you
we?
meet with him? She
I,
said you met
yeah,
with him.
I had just, I don't know, I had a really good feeling about them, and then I ended up
We
looking.
presented at that conference and
Oh, I
about the
didn't know.
Cambridge project
I
in
looked at
Porter
the
Square
website.
and the historic
Yeah.
houses. And
Yeah, no, well,
There's really
after,
nice
then I
stuff.
did some research about all the stuff he's done, and him and his partner, and, yeah,
I mean-
they're doing stuff that we want to do.
Yeah.
So-
We talked about
let's-
maybe, like, can we talk to someone like
Yeah,
that?
hello, yeah.
Well, it's,
Like, have them come?
Yeah,
why
I
don't-
mean, they
let's
they
put it on
love
the-
it. Are you kidding
put it on
me?
the action item,
If
put it
we
on the
invited
action
them,
list.
they would
I just,
jump at the
you know,
opportunity.
I'm looking at this list of strategies, and there are some very,
Experts and they are.
Right, exactly.
yeah, so it's
Yeah, they're
it's
the
on the
ones
list of
creating these
action
units.
items to bring them in. I mean, I see a lot of strategies in here which we can do.
For 40B,
Well, to increase the number of affordable units in town. So here we go. We can, inclusionary zoning.
What page are you on, so that people?
I'm on regulatory strategies. I mean, I'm trying to understand what it is, what you obviously want something that's really targeted.
Yes.
well.
And I
it's
don't
actually-
understand where that's coming from.
It's actually interesting, because you're talking about how many people are in town are struggling in their housing, right? Because look at that percentage. Now, to meet the 40B law, to put us in safe harbor, what burden is that now gonna put on the taxpayers who are that 20%?
You're right.
Like,
Sure.
everything costs
Right.
money. To get that money, it has to come out of the residents. It has to come out of those who are tax burdened. So then it's like, well, maybe we should just go back to fighting it and focus on the lowercase a and just keep on focusing on trying to do affordable housing in town that is not through accessory dwelling units, through other things, and just keep fighting 40B, because at the end of the day, it might actually be cheaper on town to continue to fight 40Bs rather than doing that, if they cannot figure a way to resolve that indifference. Because they're talking about
It's a real
a
dichotomy.
big portion of our,
For the biggest problem for this people who are struggling is frankly the taxes. And I don't know who you're talking
yeah.
to, but the taxes are really killer.
I know, because I think
And the more
particularly as you
units we
start
have,
talking with
if they
seniors,
have-
it's
if they have
taxes
more
that get to be
kids,
killer.
With all due respect to kids, but that just.
But
adds-
that's something the
then you
town
end up
could
with
do.
more
The town could
overrides and-
institute programs for people. And they, I mean, I know they have some right now, but
They
they're
have
pretty
some,
tiny.
yeah.
So this
What was
is,
the first part of your sentence?
the town could create better programs to offer tax relief to people who are struggling.
I mean,
Right.
they do, I mean, the town does offer such things.
It
You
offers,
just have to be at the welfare level.
yeah, I mean, there's a range, and the relief that you get is not huge. It's several hundreds of dollars, which on a large tax bill is,
Yeah, exactly.
so, I mean, there is relief that could be offered to offset these burdens, but,
believe that is-
you know, if we're going to look at 40Bs, we're either going to have to say,
And that's what
yeah, these are the regulatory stories. We're either going to have to accept enormous structures and get our 300-plus units a year and get to it, or we're going to have to spread the burden out across town. So there's nothing that we can do as a board to say, okay, if we're going to say we want, you know, a 300-unit development there and a 300-unit development there, I mean, we don't have to do anything. That's going to happen, right? They're going to come in with a 40B, hopefully it's friendly, they're going to go to Holton, they're going to find some other large plot, and they're just going to plop them in, and then we're done.
Well, some
If the-
people feel the only way that we'll be able to get to safe harbor if we have at least one large project. I
Right.
don't know if
But that's not-
true,
that's not-
because you can make 40 unit. I mean, if all you need is one project of 40 units, and then you can get safe
Right.
harbor for a year. So
just
So
one
the
year.
question is, how do you, if you look at these two ways of getting to it, if we just rely upon large developments, then we don't have to do anything. They're just going to come in and do it on their own, right? Because they can.
I don't
it's
know.
possible. It's
No, we
it's
can
possible and likely.
Yeah, but the point is, everything under these regulatory strategies
Are things we could.
are things that we could
Yep.
implement, which would make it easier to get in 40B units. So,
So
Some
yeah.
of those have no impact on 40B.
well, inclusionary zoning
So yeah,
does.
extending inclusionary zoning outside of the center business district, a 40
which
a
we
40R
talked-
district,
40R.
where 20% of the units have to be.
Yeah,
Improving the permitting process for affordable housing, increase the efficiency.
lowering minimum
Lower
lot,
minimum
I
lot
don't,
areas, I don't know.
I don't think
Bless
that
you.
does
I
it,
don't know. Yeah.
but let's keep going.
Expand where duplexes are
I
allowed.
don't know
That
that.
doesn't create.
No,
That's
it
lower,
doesn't.
that's moderately priced. Expand
this
where
one-
Townhouses are allowed,
That
again.
would increase it,
Yeah, apartments.
yep.
Well, these are moderate housing.
You want to just point
No,
out-
this would actually also be for affordable,
For allowing townhouses to be built, actually.
In more places.
Yeah,
That's
you would
I think
increase
that's lower-
density, and so
That's
you-
lowercase.
It's
That's,
not deed restricted.
no, it's moderately priced.
But
So that's-
no,
Well, you
but
could combine these
you can
strategies.
combine these,
Yeah.
right? So if you can say,
On
we
its
can
own.
put in townhouses here, so you can put in townhouses, all of a sudden we
But two of
get.
them, but 2 of them or 3 of them have to be affordable.
Right.
Right, so they can't, all of these strategies work for 40B purposes.
Not all of them.
Well, yes, but most of the ones we've discussed do. So yeah,
would
there are a
say
couple
that-
which obviously
Out of
don't.
These,
but-
I would say 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10.
Yeah, the majority really do provide a better environment for people to come in and build capital A affordable
Yeah.
homes.
What am I looking at the wrong place? Commit public land to housing?
No, we're at,
So that's not a regulatory strategy.
that's not a regulatory, I'm looking at regulatory strategies.
Because that's stuff that we
Back up,
control.
There are 3 more, just to read them off.
Yeah, it's 13 through 23.
Add maximum size limits to the zoning bylaw.
I'm not
This
sure.
had to, this is basically what Lexington, this is what we just talked about.
Yeah, so this is to prevent mansionization,
So,
A lot.
but,
and an affordable housing fee in exchange for demo, they're,
I'm very interested in knowing more about that.
well, they
they-
want to, but the historical commission wants to extract a fee to do demo or to do Form B.
that's okay.
Just
They're not,
Impose an affordable housing fee on demolition permit.
Maybe
Yeah.
we could have 2 fees.
the,
I
I-
like that.
Nantucket is doing something interesting where all the real estate transactions are going, a percentage of the real estate transactions are all going into a kitty that then Nantucket is using to purchase land.
Interesting.
How?
Yeah.
That's how CPA works.
real estate transaction.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
how it is.
The housing sales.
It's
Yeah.
a-
Going
Yes.
into a CPA.
That is how
it's a-
CPA
it's
works.
CPA.
CPA.
So it also comes out of percentage of taxes.
That's what I thought.
So there's so there's a fund that's from the state. That fund is accumulated due to real estate transactions.
Right.
That's the state fund that gives the match. The other portion,
The town of
i-
Natick and of Nantucket is creating their own percentage on top of those, in addition to the state.
okay, well,
That's what I want to learn about.
Okay,
Special tax.
That's interesting.
right. So
I'm sure
we,
that will go over wonderfully.
it doesn't matter, we should look at it. So put it on your list of things to look
I'm
at.
interested in learning about,
Just
because
like our
that,
ADUs.
if you're,
So Natick, Nantucket, which one was it?
Nantucket, Nantucket.
so that all their sales, the
So-
town has a tax on the sales, and it comes back into a fund. It's not through the taxes, it's through the sales.
So-
Okay, so as much as we'd love to continue talking about this, we are running out of time.
Yeah,
So-
I'm sorry, but I am out of here at 10 tonight.
Yeah, no, we're all out of here at 10.
Okay,
11:30,
so, to clarify so continue to look at it and
So
come back with feedback.
So Nantucket uses a real estate transaction fee.
That goes, so the town has money to buy land.
At the very least, also.
Honestly, that's, I mean, I hate to say this, that sounds exactly like CPA.
But
It is CPA, but it's,
Well, that's what it's, I mean, are you sure that,
It's a local run, the money goes 100% to Nantucket.
yeah, so
That's
just,
how they're trying to purchase land.
But
That's how they
what
get their
CPA
golf
does.
courses.
it's a land acquisition fund, but we don't have to use, if we were to do something like that, it would be,
You don't have to call it CPA, is what you're saying. You
No,
can
it's not
have the
CPA.
money and
we
use
could
it
just
for what you want.
pass CPA without passing CPA?
yeah,
Pretty
anyway.
much. it's-
Well, we can,
Something else.
let's,
Yeah.
let's,
People
let's,
say yes.
well, okay,
just don't
let's
get a
put that
match
on the
from
list of things to look
It's
at.
just like, give us your
And
money.
let's move on. So, the housing production plan, I think we're gonna continue to talk about it. I think the important point is that people want to see more targeted, approaches to getting us into 40B safe harbor. So we'll pass that along to MAPC. Okay, we now have 15 minutes left. I want to remind everyone that we're doing Brian's annual review next week.
Okay.
Well, I think I don't know if you've spoken with Human Resources or if you, because Jackie had been on Personnel Board, so she was pretty good at the detail of it. But I don't believe anything should be emailed to anyone. There was a general, and
Oh, you mean
how
the
to
filled-in responses?
out and bring them in, how to.
Oh, we brought them to the meeting,
Right.
Yeah,
Did a
Jackie was familiar with
presentation.
all that.
And we discussed.
and then we turned them in
Yeah,
at the end of it, right?
Yeah,
We
I'm the
turned them
wrong
in.
person to
Right.
ask.
Yeah.
That's what we did last
And then
time.
they are also, after it's all done, it's supposed to all be destroyed, so, except for the final.
No, you write up the final
Sure.
summary.
So,
Bring them in and what we did.
so everyone write up, comment on the form, bring them in, pass them in to me. I will take them all in, create a amalgam, and then that will have to, I guess, I will talk to Human Resources. We'll figure it out as to what the actual steps are.
Even though it is not a year?
Yeah, because you overlapped with Brian for several months, so you can comment on your appreciation for several
Only
months.
if it's good stuff.
Oh, yeah, only good stuff.
All right.
So, I was hoping to do the quarterly planning board review tonight, which would be, one of the things I would like to know is, A, how the chair has been performing as a chair. Also, whether, one of the things that I am concerned about is whether the process is going as it should, whether we're achieving what we want to achieve, whether we're missing things that shouldn't be missed. Are there big picture items that are not on the table? One of the things that I have been a little frustrated with is that everything seems to take much longer than I hoped it would, and that's just the nature of the beast. But whenever I think of all the things I'd like to do, it always seems there's never enough time left to do that. So that's just a personal frustration. It has no.
I feel your pain.
Yeah, I'm sure. Those who've been in this seat, I'm sure, understand.
You mean during meetings or like?
No, just the whole process, getting anything done, just, it's just, it's not like we can all sit down and tear through things in a couple of days and do things, there's
There's process.
process, there are, we have deep discussions about issues, we continue to have discussions, which are all very good, I don't think we've wasted time on those, but it's just, I have this vision of an action-packed year, and it seems to be taking longer to get to some things that I hoped. So for instance, we haven't talked about CBD and GBDs in terms of what are the things we like in the CBD that we want to move into the GBDs, and that's an important thing that we need to discuss, like how are we going to change the zoning as we move up North Main Street to incorporate the things we know that we like from the CBD. So that's something I'd like to get started with. But we also are, we've got all this other things we're dealing with, and I want to make sure that we are efficiently getting to things, that we're not having too many balls in the air, because that can lose focus. But if we don't have enough balls in the air, we don't get anything done. So that's pretty much where I'm at.
Would you like me to start?
Yeah, sure.
Well, no, first of all, the review of the chair that you asked for, one, I think you're actually doing a very fabulous job, and I understand your frustrations and the length that things are taking, but the one thing that I really appreciate about the planning board is that we do not call each other, and we don't. So everything,
It's all right there at the
everything we
table.
come is at the table, which does take longer than other boards, because sometimes they are talking to each other one-on-one, which is allowed, but we don't do that. We tend to come to the table and talk to it all here, which does take longer. And I think that the residents prefer that, so they see the whole conversation, they see everything, and everything is here, there, available for them to look at what we're talking about, because the discussion is people bring information, they're bringing facts, they're bringing a document, or they're referencing something they saw. Brian does the same thing. So I understand that, but I actually appreciate that it does take longer, but that is because of the process that the planning board, this current sitting planning board takes.
Yeah, it's
And I
an-
find that to be very sincere in how, and to the public and the residents, and I think that speaks highly to you also, Deanne. I think we're making huge progress, the way that you have changed the recording of action items and are tracking the action items. That's the way I like to do things, as you know, and so I like knowing that there's an action item that I'm responsible for. I know it, Brian knows, like, you're supposed to do this, and it goes for all of us, and it does it for you too, so it keeps you on task, and it keeps all of us on tasks. And I did reach out to a couple chairs of other boards and commissions, and they had nothing but great things to say about the way that they are interacting with you. And they kept themselves anonymous, but they really said that they are really enjoying working with you and feel that the planning board is a force right now, and that we are trucking along, and yeah, we have little bumps and stuff, but we are doing a really good job.
And
Focused.
I know, and I think just because of the composition of boards past and present, I mean, I think we have been able to accomplish a great deal over, say, if you take a look over like the last 5 years or so, we have gotten a tremendous amount done. And I think you're just continuing on.
It doesn't always
And
feel
it's
that way.
much appreciated. I know. It feels frustrating sometimes, I know. Still, you're doing a great job.
There must be some criticisms, some,
I didn't realize we were talking about this tonight, so I'm not going to say anything, but I do have a question based on what you said. Is there, like, written goals for the year? I saw in Brian's
The budget,
evaluation
so-
that there are, but are there for the planning board?
that,
Like, what we want to do?
that in the past, there have been.
Yeah.
And I know that it has been noted that I haven't come out and stated any. And I haven't, in the couple of years I've been on the board, there has been, prior to me being chair, and I haven't really seen them as being useful in the sense that they weren't always, I didn't know that they gave great direction. And so the approach I've had was essentially to leave some of the responsibility to the board to come up with things they think that are important. So, because one of the things is I didn't have the discussion, maybe that was more inappropriate, that I should have had a discussion saying this is what we should do. I don't feel it's my place to sit down and say this is what the board should do. That's not my management style.
We can
So-
do it as a group, though.
We
right?
could do it as a
Instead of
group,
goals,
yeah.
Where it feels like
Speaking, I
it's
think
week
that's
by
what we've
week,
done in
like
the
what do we
past.
want to
Right,
talk about?
right.
Instead of like, these are all of the things we want to talk about for the year, let's spread it out,
That-
tackle them and be prepared.
I can
Pre-meeting.
understand
So
that, yeah.
there's a conversation that we do have every budget season.
Right.
That talks about goals and objectives that are for me, but it's also for the board.
Exactly.
I mean, at least that's how it's generally viewed, only because I can't do most of my work without you guys.
Right.
So the short answer is that yes, we do go through goals and objectives, and as part of as part of the budget and the annual review, we have to see whether or not what goals I've met or the
Right,
board
so
has
I
met.
read those for last
So
year.
yeah,
and
there.
Right.
So but that is more centered on the department,
Right.
and it's less centered on the board. But Diab and I were talking about doing just that, of having a document, just the same thing, goals and objectives
So
for
I
the board.
have
Yeah,
them in
that's a good idea.
my famous files, and I would be happy to bring them in. They go back quite far, and I feel as if they're things that were goals. It's not that the board, in the past, at the end of after the town election, and the incoming chair then sets up the meeting, and we've done that, and then just lays out all the different ways, and the board contributes other things the board could be working on, and then just start picking out where we want to go and what our priorities are. So there are many areas that that have just kind of fallen by the wayside, and I think could be, again,
resurrected.
reviewed at least. And there are other things that just need reviews and need updates. So, for example, I have asked Diab, and I don't copy the whole board, just as Heather says, I just copy Diab and Brian. But this board really, under Mass General Law, our authority is these subdivisions. This board has so many people who've not even seen the matrix that shows the Excel spreadsheet. These are more than 20 years old. The subdivisions have not been closed out, and it's just embarrassing beyond belief and dysfunctional beyond belief.
But
It's
Brian's
our
been
board.
working.
Brian, yeah, I mean,
Well,
that,
it took a
but,
while.
Really,
It
it's,
was-
Yeah,
it's
so-
not me, it's
It's
town
not-
council, and there's
yeah, I
But-
don't know.
fire committee.
So the
fire-
Yeah,
board
but that's-
should be-
Put out.
Can I just state, that is yes, I understand that there are long-term things, and that's why I rely upon the board to bring those up. I mean, I don't see those, I mean,
They're on the action list, right?
they're on the action list, but not everything's on the action list. So for instance, things that, there are undoubtedly goals from previous years which are not being looked at this year. But I also,
But they were also goals of previous chairs or.
yeah, I guess,
No, they were boards.
well, I apologize, Heather, in that you were new, and I should have brought you up to speed on the existing things that we were doing. So when I started this year, I looked at what we had been doing over the last year, and I didn't think there was a lot of room for new things because we have so many things we'd already been working on. And so, but we can sit down and talk about goals for the next 7 months, however many. I think that's, obviously, people want that, so we'll do that.
Is it prioritizing the action list? Is really what.
It's probably getting more things.
It's getting more
in
things.
that
I was
action
thinking
list. and-
topics, like
Right,
the way
right,
that we're
that's
like, let's
what-
talk about dormers, let's talk about duplexes, let's talk about ADUs, let's talk about tear down, like, there's so many things to talk about. If
Right.
we spread them out and had like presentations, or this day we're gonna do this, and we know that's 2 months out,
Well, I kind of was trying to get that going. So we had the landmarks,
Seminar
we had, I mean, that was the idea of creating these little subcommittees who would look at things, and we have several. I've already forgotten how many there are, but certainly you and Brian working on ADUs was one of them. We have people who are going to be looking at the forms from the building department. So there are a number of things.
Landmark.
There's the landmarking. So there are these topics that require more research, and so there are sort of these informal
maybe
groups
just a
of
list
two.
then. Like, these are all the things
Yeah,
we're
but,
interested in
and there are other
covering.
topics, like we were talking at the end of the last meeting about staffing, that's something else.
Staffing is something, yeah, so those,
When do we talk about
I
that?
mean, yeah.
Besides
well,
the meeting?
those are,
What the meetings are.
what happens is that we do have a list of actions, and all of the subcommittee things are on the list of actions, which Brian sends out. The Excel sheet he sends out with his weekly update. So if it's not on there, then, and you think it should be, then that's where it goes. And then when they come up at meetings is essentially when Brian and I put together the agenda, we look at things that have to get done, and then Brian has a list of agenda items, which are separate from the action item list. So
So
these are,
anytime an agenda item gets put, that gets put into a bank of other agenda items that we have. It's like, so if we have enough time, then we get to that, so.
So in the sense of, in my mind, I like this because it's flexible. And so, for instance, Maureen a couple weeks ago said, let's talk about tear down prevention. And that's why it's on here, because we were looking at things to fill in, and there it is. So that's how things get on the agenda. In terms of overall structure, obviously, or overall goals, we're running out of time. Brian has to leave at 10 exactly.
Not exactly, but I'd like to.
No, that's not off track. That's on track.
I think
It's-
maybe at the time, so, again, goals and objectives we do for the department around budget season, which is like December, something like that. We could have in addition to that, we have a
Have an
planning
interim.
board, goals and objectives that talk about, and whether it is this kind of almost seminar format, every 3 months, we should probably be delving into something.
Yeah.
We do it, but maybe we should formalize it a
Formalize
little
it a
more.
little.
I was hope, but the problem is when you ask people to do that, and unfortunately, I have been saying, if you're interested in something, I automatically assign you to a committee, because usually I find that if you just ask for volunteers, no one volunteers. So, if you can't step back far enough, then you get volunteered, essentially. And I know that that's not always a welcome thing. So I haven't done that recently.
So if I were to pick one topic, though, that I would say that collectively we need to do, we need your leadership and Brian's, and it can be either one, but, I'd love for Brian to bring it forward, now you've got your attention, but it's really the whole business of the setting these timelines. We just, when we've got certain things and we're trying to get to town meeting, and I remember at some point, I was saying, and I still don't actually have it, because I keep the calendar, but it's when does, and I've got 2 dates still, I still don't have the date, when does the warrant close? And-
I have it.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah, let me-
So now,
I'm
mark
just
it,
open
but
my
you see, we
Outlook.
should be doing
Good to
that
know.
at
Tell me the day.
right at the end of the
I'm
prior.
opening my
meeting.
calendar.
And then you need to have the hearing scheduled, you need to know if you're bringing
Exactly.
art in, and just all of that should have been worked out months ago.
Well, in a certain way it was,
Warrant
because
closes the 24th of September.
Okay.
September 24th.
September
That's a
24th.
Monday?
Yes.
I mean, one of the things I have been pushing for since March was to get all of our warrant articles finalized by mid-August in preparation for this whole thing. And so I think I'm really pushing hard for that.
Feedback.
Yeah,
So you're
yeah,
saying-
no, I'm just
So
explaining that
When I'm
they're,
asking about the North Main Street, which I'm really keen to do, and you initiated it, and I say, yes, that absolutely, I want to rezone North Main Street. We should be getting the abutters noticed and all this, especially because now we're at the end of August and it's going to be September, and here I am trying to work it through the
Yeah,
calendar.
so those- yes.
So there's some feedback, and
no, I agree. It's good feedback, and Brian and I will get those letters out this week. Originally, we were going to contact them at the end of July. It's actually on one of Brian's action items, but that didn't happen because all sorts of other things came through and just were
That can happen.
higher priority. So so I am more than willing to accept feedback. I hope that's true. If it appears that I'm not, then you can remind me that I'm being a hypocrite.
I think you are the first chair I've ever met that said, I would like to have feedback in open
Public.
meeting. I think that alone says that you
Hey,
are welcome. Looking for
A
feedback.
very quick thing as we begin to adjourn is that,
it sounds like church.
just realize, so this big humongous joint meeting that we were potentially going to have that ended up got canceled. So we were looking towards a potential August meeting. Next week, August 14th, is by far the one that most people are able to do, including legal counsel. I hope
They are available?
They are available. At least they were when I had sent this out, but it took more time for everyone to really get, not the planning board, this was a lot of people that were, 17 participants are in the August joint meeting. So there's a large possibility that most of our meeting next week will
Oh,
be,
yeah, if
will
we
be
can get
taking
it.
up.
Then
don't know
I
if
would
it's-
say, like, first thing tomorrow morning, email everybody and say, hold the time, we're doing
Well,
full steam ahead.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, we should let them know.
People fill up their calendar, even when they say they're free, then they just start.
Right. No, you're right. So, I don't know how much regular planning board meeting time we would maybe
Oh, it's your
have.
birthday.
Maybe none. I think
Do something
the
special.
Oh,
idea,
this is important.
well, I think the original idea, and then we'll stop, was that we would maybe meet from 7 to 9 with the joint group, and then we would meet for another hour if we
Yeah.
had something to do.
Yes.
So I still think
That's
that
a good
that's
way
the
to do
plan,
it.
is that we
Yeah.
meet for 2 hours with everybody, and it's from 7 to 9,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
from 9 to 10, if we had any additional business, we would do that.
Well, we certainly have addition,
I did not know that.
we will have a celebration for
Can we
him.
have a cake?
Heather's already
Free,
requested.
have a cake.
How about some ice cream? How
Wait,
about an ice cream cake?
So,
only if it's not this hot.
Anyway, I think I'm done.
Okay, well, we do,
Motion to adjourn.
are you set with your action items? Yeah, do you have the list? Did you need to review that?
oh, that's right, we do have, can you review your action items? Because you've been taking notes today better than I.
I'm going to continue talking with Dennis about having some type of on-call design consultant for the planning
Yes.
board.
Yeah.
Look at a number of tear downs over the past 4 years and see if has changed since the historical commission changed the demo delay bylaw. Get the updated tear down map from Brian as soon as possible. Update the tear down list that was created by Joe. That was the senior that was working with me.
Right.
Talk to Capstone, try to get them into a planning board meeting. Nantucket uses a real estate transaction fee like CPA. Find out what this is. More targeted approaches to get to safe harbor are needed in the HPP working plan. Get this to MAPC as soon as possible.
And we also need the FAR map of town.
I have no promises on that one.
Well, we can talk about it.
Yeah, no,
I mean,
no.
it's something that we need help from, we need help from engineering. Yeah, we have GIS masters in
All right, so
engineering.
next week is you.
Next week is you,
Oh, yeah, that's right.
a little more
Oh,
formal.
yeah, so I guess it has to be from 9 to, if you were gonna do my review, it would be at 9 o'clock.
We'd go in
have to be
executive
after that.
session at 9 o'clock.
It's 5 o'clock. We cannot keep moving this.
We can have the cake in executive session.
Gluten-free cake.
Yeah, that's allowed.
There you
No
go. There you
laws.
go. We can do
Go to
that.
Whole Foods, they do have them at Whole Foods.
Gluten-free cakes are
I just
allowed.
expect something.
Okay, do we have a motion?
If I'm coming in.
Maureen,
good
move
luck
to
with
adjourn.
She made the motion, but no one.
That's all I have to say.
Do we have a second for adjournment?
Second.
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye, aye.
Aye.
Going outside to warm up.
Bye, Winchester. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank